Analysis machine. How's our power looking?
Power gauge is at 100%.
Excellent. Then it's time for marathon mode. Open file 27.
Understood. Opening file.
Tai is the original leader of the Digidestined, and is often regarded as one of the most recognized and likable characters in the entire series. Though he's no Marcus Damon, it's not unusual to see him charging into the thick of battle with his partner Digimon, and his bravery and fortitude, even in the most dire of situations, have made him a symbol of both courage and leadership. But was this always the case? Sup guys, this is D Reaper, and today we're going to do a character analysis on Tai Kamiya. We've got a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now, it's important to recognize that even though we kind of assume Tai to be the leader of the gang, due to the fact that he's the one narrating the story amongst other things, it's actually pretty deep into the story when Tai becomes the official leader of the group. But like most things, it's best to put first things first, so let's begin at the beginning. When the kids first enter the digital world, most don't really know each other that well. With the exception of Tai and Sora, who have been in school together for a while and played on the same soccer team, and obviously Matt and TK, who are brothers. So by and large, as they're learning about their new environment, they're also learning about each other. Though the four older kids try to establish some type of structure, even early on, Tai goes above and beyond, really showing his mettle when they first encounter Shellmon. It's their second big monster attack, and this time the Digimon seem unable to fend off this threat. While some try to run, some cry, and others cower, Tai grabs a piece of debris and starts trying to fend off the monster with Agumon. And though it's true, not everybody's good under pressure, and being good in a fight doesn't necessarily make you a good leader, but we see Tai's mindset when he gets grabbed by Shellmon. Even as he's getting the life squeezed out of him, he's more concerned that his friends are being attacked than he is about his own precarious situation. Tai can be kind of a bonehead. He definitely leans more towards brawny than brainy, but we see time and time again a desire and willingness to help others, whether they be Digimon or his friends. Tai is a man of action, and he's the one primarily pushing the group to move forward. Like when he pushed the team to climb Infinity Mountain, or when leading the charge to leave Foul Island. And though this sometimes created opposition in the group, primarily from Matt, he acknowledges that their situation won't improve unless they're willing to take action, to do something about it. After the group arrives on the server continent, Tai gets one of the major challenges to his character. By this point, the team has grown to trust each other a lot more. While being chased around the continent by the powerful Edamon,
it's not easy being a superstar, little bunny, but someone's got to do it.
Tai becomes the first of the group to possess both attack and a crest. These are the tools that the Digidestined will need to help the Digimon Digivolve to the ultimate level and defeat Edamon. With this development, Tai elevates himself and Agumon to the sole protectors of the group, and with that new status, he himself will be making all of the decisions for everyone. Now, it's important to recognize this distinction. Even before this point, the group has gone along with most of Tai's decisions, but there's a stark difference between his past and current behavior. While in the past, he won people over with his confidence and conviction, his current actions were boorish in nature. He demands the compliance of the others, and is harsh with anyone who questions his authority. Even his partner Digimon is not spared from this treatment. After he commandeers the food meant for the entire group, he force-feeds Agumon until he feels like he's about to explode. Then he resolves to purposely put himself in danger to force Agumon to digivolve further in order to save him. Under the thumb of Tai's forced leadership, the others in the group certainly have their complaints, but Sora sticks up for Tai, as she recalls them playing soccer together and assures them that Tai values the concept of teamwork, and they should trust him. This was the wrong call. To put it simply, the plan ended in disaster.
It would be fine if he digivolved into Metal Greymon, but we can't have him turning into Skull Greymon.
Actually, Gojo, that's precisely what happens. While doing his best to protect everyone himself, and caving to the obstructive pressure from his partner, Greymon digs deep to find the strength to reach another level, and touches something dark. Skull Greymon easily dispatches the enemy, then turns his fury on the group as well. As Skull Greymon runs amok, Tai realizes he made a terrible mistake. He tries to call out to Skull Greymon, but it's as if his partner doesn't even recognize him anymore. The rampage is short-lived, but Skull Greymon is able to take down several of the other Digimon and bust up a Coliseum before he runs out of energy and reverts back to Koromon. Everyone is a bit shaken, but none so much as Tai and Koromon. Koromon tries to apologize for what happened, but Tai puts the blame on himself. This only happened because he tried to force his partner to digivolve to Ultimate, without having any clue on how to go about it. It's important to note that when Tai messes up, he quickly takes ownership for his mistakes and actions that caused it. Oftentimes when people mess up, particularly when the damages are excessive, some people are not willing to admit it was their actions that caused the problem. Sometimes it takes weeks or even months before they own up to their mistakes, and that's if ever. Even more so, many put in this situation would jump at the chance to place blame, or at the very least share it to absolve themselves of some of the guilt. Goromon offered the perfect opportunity to do just that. After all, Tai didn't attack the other Digimon, and he's not capable of smashing up a Coliseum. He'd gotten his partner to the next level as promised. It's not his fault that his partner couldn't keep it together, but instead, we see Tai taking full responsibility and showing willingness to answer to his friends for the way that he's been acting. This shows a great deal of inner strength and not just brute force. Tai is surprised at how forgiving his friends are, but, as stated before, by this point they're all pretty close. They know Tai wasn't acting like himself, and they can see that he's remorseful, so they're ready to move on, which is great for the group as a whole. But for Tai and Agumon, moving past this event won't be quite that easy. We see this later on when Tai stops Agumon from digivolving, that they're both still afraid of what can happen if Agumon is pushed too far. Their faith in themselves and their partnership is shaken, and it isn't until they undergo some special training with Piximon that they learn an important lesson on perseverance, and comprehend that they can't be held captive by the fear of making mistakes. And just when the group needs them most, Tai shows up with the Greymon to save the day. Seems like things are looking up. But Tai has another major character-shaping moment in the same arc. So while the team is being pursued by Edamon and his dark network, the group get a message from Datamon, and Izzy gets proof of his working theory that the Digimon, the world that they see, and even their own bodies are composed of living data. Naturally, this concept goes over everyone's head, and they're not sure what to think. They don't feel like data. At least they don't feel like what they would imagine data to feel like. After all, they still have to sleep, eat, and use the bathroom, and they have all experienced varying degrees of pain and discomfort, so there's surely more to it than what they can comprehend. But Tai, who's shown a similar tendency towards things he doesn't understand, decides to oversimplify the situation. Thus, he gets the idea that their situation is more akin to controlling avatars than actually being present in the digital world. This causes Tai to act more recklessly as they sneak into Edamon's base to rescue Datamon. It's not that Tai has a death wish, or that he doesn't understand that the situation is serious. It's more like the liberating feeling when you're playing a difficult game and suddenly enter a section where you have little to no repercussions upon death. After all, it's a lot less nerve-wracking when you're fighting the big boss, and you only have 100 runes on the line. When Sora scolds him, he doesn't see what she's getting so upset about, but he does rein in his reckless behavior for a time. But things take a turn for the worse when Datamon betrays the group and ends up kidnapping Sora and Biyomon. Tai and the others go after them, but Datamon manages to give them the slip. In their pursuit, they come across an electrified fence. Having come through this area before, they know that there's a false point in the fence that they can pass through unharmed. As Izzy attempts to run calculations to determine the weak point, Tai tries to bull rush through, and is only stopped by Joe. Tai tries to argue that they don't have time for the calculations. For every second they hesitate, Sora and Datamon are getting further away. Fortunately, Joe's been eating his spinach, and Tai isn't able to break free. I think it's also important to point out that Tai isn't entirely wrong here. In some situations, immediate action is required, and a moment's hesitation could lead to missed opportunity. The main problem is Tai doesn't understand what's at risk, as he's essentially gambling with his own life without knowledge. In the midst of his calculations, while Joe is restraining Tai, Izzy makes the explanation as simple as possible. If you die here in the digital world, then you're just as dead as you would be in the real world. Tai realizes this just as Izzy informs him that the false point is a little to the left of where he was trying to enter. Tai completely freezes up after that. In addition to all the weight of his mortality being returned to him in a span of a few seconds, he had to acknowledge that he just almost killed himself. It's too much for him to grasp, and his body completely stops responding. I'll admit, when I initially saw this, I thought it was kind of lame, but by my second watch through, I honestly really grasped the execution of this whole scene, and what it means for Tai's development. I'm telling you guys, don't sleep on these old school characters. Some of them can put a lot of these new ones to shame. Taking a closer look, honestly, you don't have to dwell very long on this whole exchange to see it's actually a pretty realistic response. We see sometimes people freeze up, break down, or become physically sick when they're faced with a near-death experience. And even combat veterans can experience a certain type of combat neurosis from fear of dying due to a simple careless mistake, like choking on a piece of food, or perishing from a known allergic reaction. Imagine surviving all these giant monster attacks, just to die by foolishly walking into an electrified fence. With Tai immobilized, Digimon escapes and the team is forced to regroup. Tai takes the loss very hard and puts all the blame on himself. The others are upset about Sora, but they don't gang up on Tai because of it, and rightly so. It wasn't Tai's fault that Digimon betrayed them, and with the head start Digimon had on them, the fact that they had to wait for Izzy to locate the safest route might very well have made pursuit a moot point. Regardless, Tai sees this result as a mark of his own failure to respond, and vows to see Sora return safe, even if it's the last thing he does. One recurring and very admirable trait Tai has is his willingness to take ownership. He never tries to deflect when he makes a mistake, and is actually a lot more likely to bear the burdens of others along with his own, even if he doesn't have to. He doesn't shy away from responsibility. After they deduce Digimon must still be somewhere in the base, Tai comes up with a strategy, and the team moves in for the Sora Biyomon rescue mission. So far, everything seems to be going well, but the plan is extremely time sensitive. They can't beat Edamon and his forces in a fight. So before the confusion dies down, they need to have located Sora and be on their way out of the pyramid base. It's getting close to crunch time when Tai and Agumon come across another electrified fence, identical to the last one, and Tai is terrified. This time, there's no Izzy to check for weak points. The clock is ticking, and they won't get a second chance to rescue Sora. Agumon sees how scared Tai is of the fence, and offers to destroy it, though it could take a few minutes. Once again, his partner offers him a way out. No one would blame him for taking the safer option, but Tai refuses. He tells Agumon if he's not able to overcome this fear himself, he may never be able to move past it. That means possibly freezing up again when his friends need him most. It's a pretty tense scene in context, and it's worth noting that the only thing that's changed between this situation and the last is Tai's mindset. So, in likely the greatest display of courage in the series, Tai overcomes his fear by passing his hand through the false wall. With this act, he has the self-assurance that he'll never again be paralyzed by fear when it's standing between him and his friends. Tai's crest of courage begins to glow as a result of Tai's actions. After all, courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward in spite of it. This marks a major turning point for the battle against Edamon, and Greymon's able to reach the ultimate level as Metal Greymon, and defeats Edamon. But in a strange twist, Tai and Koromon end up back in the human world.
Tai, can I make a little suggestion? Open the door!
Since they're close to his house, they end up crashing at Tai's apartment, where we meet his sister, Kari. We see right away how much Kari admires Tai. Though she acknowledges his shortcomings, she still describes him as the coolest big brother ever. While Kari and Koromon are bonding, Tai seems to be experiencing a type of combat paradox, as he marvels at the simple pleasures people take for granted, like pulling a cold drink out of the fridge, or lying on a comfortable bed. He becomes more exasperated when he gets a strange message from Izzy, followed by Digimon appearing in the city. He sees himself as responsible for the strange occurrences.
Agumon, matte! Oromo! Hikari? Kanazu. Modoru.
And though part of him would rather stay, Tai answers the call of duty and returns to the digital world. Upon their return, they soon find out that everyone has gone their separate ways, so Tai makes it his highest priority to get the band back together, and with a little help and a lot of luck, he's able to do just that. It's later on in this arc, while invading Maruto-sama's castle, that Tai is officially chosen as the leader of the group. Tai's initial response is shock, but Matt gives him a heartfelt vote of confidence, telling Tai that he's been leading them this whole time, and points out that the team literally fell apart without him. Now, as the official leader, Tai's very first act is to delegate someone else to solve their immediate problem. This act speaks volumes. First, it shows Tai's growth, as in the past, Tai might have followed a more primitive approach to the solution, like just trusting his instincts while placing cards to match the gate. Second, it shows his humility, as he acknowledges his strengths might not be the most favorable in this situation. Third, he's able to recognize the strengths of his teammates and effectively place them where they can be the most effective, all of which are great leadership traits. When they return to the real world, we see Tai really embraces the title of team leader. He becomes very conscious of the team's morale and makes it a point to lead by example. It doesn't mean things always work out according to plan, but through his actions, the group's faith in Tai grows, and likewise his trust for them increases as well. Tai's very protective of his little sister, and as she's drawn into the battle as the 8th child, he trusts the others to keep her safe when he's not around. Even when she gets kidnapped by Melisman under Matt's watch, Matt expects the worst from Tai, but when they meet, Tai's not angry. He says he knows Matt must have done everything he could, and moves on. It isn't until we return to the digital world that we get another big challenge to Tai's character, which occurs after the team defeats Metal Digimon. This is the team's first big win since returning to the digital world, and the victory was not without cost. And while Tai is looking ahead to the next fight, the rest of the team is at their limit. Wanting to keep pushing ahead, Tai tries to motivate the others by telling them that the death of their friend is all the more reason to push the attack, both for revenge and to assure that there are no more victims. And once again, Tai isn't exactly wrong here. The reason that they've been having such a hard time upon their return is because their enemies have had so much time to prepare, and it would certainly be advantageous to press the attack before their enemy can reorganize. And regardless of how bad you feel, simply sitting down and refusing to move forward definitely won't help your cause. Tai's blunder here is failing to understand how the team is feeling at large. What the team needs now is not a rallying call to arms. Things might have gone over better had he allowed one of the others, probably Sora or Mimi, to give a short eulogy honoring the fallen. But between Matt's antagonizing and Puppetmon's interference, Tai doesn't get a chance to rectify this mistake, and this event is a major factor that leads to the team splitting up again. To his credit, Tai doesn't try to demand that the team stay together, though he'd rather it be so. He acknowledges that some of his friends have some things to work out before they can continue as a team. He bears no ill will towards anyone, even Matt, who essentially attacked him out of the blue. He says he trusts that they will return when the time is right, and lets them know that he's counting on them before they depart. Though the group splinters off, most everybody sticks with Tai, and it's here that we have Tai's last big character challenge in the series. When Kari falls sick, Tai goes into overdrive trying to find medicine to help her feel better. This leads to Tai once again pushing the team past their limit, without acknowledgement. Now this is actually pretty out of character for Tai, as he's usually pretty quick to correct his past errors. And what's going on here is the same brand of error he made after they defeated Metal Digimon. But remember, with the chaos that immediately followed, Tai didn't get an opportunity to acknowledge or rectify his mistake. Though we do see that he's concerned about coming off as heartless to the rest of the team. But his actions here are dialed up to 11. Though we do see this tension rising as Tai becomes angry with Izzy once they discover that their location is being broadcasted whenever Izzy logs onto his computer. Tai becomes uncharacteristically short-fused, with everyone present noting that he's acting out of character. He then calms down and discloses that he tends to overcompensate his duties as a protective big brother, due to an incident that occurred several years ago, when Kari almost died on his watch. This is Tai's greatest regret, and based on the emotions he's showing here, this event still haunts him.
Never thought about what she wanted? She never does!
Because she cares.
She's a kid. I'm her big brother. I'm supposed to look after her and protect her and think of what's best for her. That's what I'm supposed to do!
Unfortunately for the team, the situation gets worse as the group gets lost underground in enemy territory. Even after the Digimon collapse from exhaustion multiple times, Tai urges them to suck it up and keep moving. Izzy tries to pull him back, first with reason, and when that doesn't work, he tries a more forceful approach. But Tai ups the ante and resorts to violence. Things might have gotten worse had the fear of running into Machinedramon in their weakened state not been a factor. As a small group huddles in a corner knowing that this could be the end, Tai apologizes to Izzy and tells him he should get his lick back. But Izzy isn't about that life, and refuses. So we do see once again that when Tai realizes he's made a mistake, he's not only willing to apologize, but he wants to do what it takes to make it right. In the subversion, he actually was preparing to go and fight Machinedramon himself to give the others a chance to escape and to atone for his actions, which is pretty metal. Even so, the fact that Tai gets violent with one of his most faithful supporters this late in the series is not exactly his finest hour. His finest hour would come later on when the group is confronted by Paimon. No, not that one. The last of the Dark Masters. Tai sends Sora to get Matt and the others, and tells everyone else to take cover, while he and War Greymon fight Paimon themselves. The others think he might be losing it, asking why he'd choose to fight a losing battle alone. But the way Tai sees it, whether one of them fight or 7 of them fight, it will be the same result. They're going to need the full team in order to win. And if Paimon takes down even one of them, then it'll all be for naught. So Tai figures if the 2 of them can just keep fighting until the full team unites, then they can win. Even as the 2 proceed to get pummeled, Tai tells the others to stay back, protecting them from the weight of his duty as a leader. It would be difficult to cut it much closer than they did. Tai and War Greymon are in pretty bad shape by the time the others arrive, but even as they're helping him get to his feet, Tai says he knew that they would make it, and he never doubted them for a second. And through the power of friendship, Tai and War Greymon are able to dig deep, get back on their feet, and win the day along with the full team. By this point, whenever Tai makes a decision, there's no question or debate, not because the others are bound by some unbending oath of loyalty, but because they have so much faith in Tai's leadership that they trust whatever conclusion he comes to will be the best for the team. Through numerous challenges and unforeseen circumstances, Tai rose to the occasion to guide the Digidestined with a display of outstanding courage and unwavering leadership. Someone who's truly worthy of the title Leader of the Digidestined. Matt is the holder of the Crest of Friendship, and unspoken co-leader of the original Digidestined group. He has an odd relationship with the team's true leader Tai, which can be described as good friends, fierce rivals, and adverse forces, all at once. But what is it that makes this character tick? And what's the reason behind the second place status? Hey guys, this is D Reaper, and today we're gonna do a character analysis on Matt Ishida. If you enjoy this type of content, the best way to communicate that is by liking this video and hitting the subscribe button for more videos like it. Best go ahead and do it now to save yourself some time. But with the YouTube stuff done, let's go ahead and jump right into it. One of the first impressions we get from Matt is that he's a cool guy. Even Tai admits it begrudgingly in the first episode, and later on, while most of the crew is freaking out either as a result of their new friends or environment, when we see Matt, he's super chill. It seems like he just accepts that they're all in a freaky situation and is rolling with the punches. So does this mean that Matt is always calm, cool, and collected? Far from it, actually. We first see Matt flip his lid in episode 3. Mimi comments that she needs a nice warm blanket in order to get a good night's sleep, and Tai begins teasing Gabumon, saying he should watch out because Mimi might try to steal his fur while he's asleep. Gabumon doesn't find this funny at all. Matt quickly comes to Gabumon's defense, actually putting hands on Tai, and the two almost end up in a fist fight. This kind of went from 0 to 100, so let's take a closer look at both sides. I didn't realize Gabumon was uncomfortable with being teased this way. Tai was really just being Tai. Tai and Agumon rib each other all the time, so in Tai's head, they were just having a bit of fun. Let's pause for a second for a quick public service announcement. Kids, if you're ever teasing or messing with someone as a joke and they don't seem to find it funny, it's probably a good idea to stop. Don't let what you meant as harmless fun turn into an uncomfortable situation at someone else's expense. On Matt's side, this is pretty intuitive. If you're already familiar with these characters, then you're probably aware that Gabumon's fur is one of his biggest hangups. He's very cautious about keeping his fur clean and dry so it doesn't stink, and he's super subconscious about being seen without his fur. But this is the first hint of such a thing in the series, so of course Matt doesn't know this. He just senses how uncomfortable Tai is making Gabumon and rushes to his defense. To this I'll say, this probably would have been just fine without Matt getting physical. Since Tai is clearly oblivious of how uncomfortable he's making Gabumon feel, Matt could just point out that Tai seems to be the only one who's enjoying his little joke, or he could have had a private conversation with him later on. As it was, Matt only served to escalate a situation that was probably already in the process of winding down. Although Matt likes to put up a front of indifference, we can see he cares a lot. One of the reasons for this cold facade is just because he's embarrassed to show how much he cares. Neither Gabumon or TK are fooled when Matt tells Gabumon to sleep by TK to keep him warm, and Matt seems pretty flustered by the fact that his deception was so easy to see through. But there might be more to Matt's cool exterior than just that. That night, while Tai and Agumon are keeping watch, Matt shows up nearby. Tai is immediately wary, wondering if Matt is trying to instigate a fight, as this is the first time Matt and Tai are alone since their fight was suspended. But Matt takes the high road, showing that he wants to make peace with Tai. He apologizes and actually discloses some of his personal life, to help Tai understand him a bit better. Through this, we learn that Matt and TK's parents are divorced, and because of that, the two rarely see each other. Matt is kind of in an odd place, because although he's happy to be able to spend more time with his brother, the added responsibility of keeping him safe in this strange world on top of everything else is burdensome. Now, Matt's personality type isn't exactly rare. In fact, we get characters with very similar personality traits in future seasons of Digimon. But let's break down Matt's situation and thought process, because I believe viewing Matt's behavior from this lens really helps us shed light on his motivations as a character. Parents getting a divorce can be a very traumatic experience for a child, especially at a young age. It seems this experience shaped Matt's outlook in two prominent and somewhat conflicting ways. One of which, Matt seems to value his bonds and friendships more than anyone else. He knows what it's like to have important people abruptly removed from his life, so Matt will always act in the interest to protect those bonds. But on the other hand, because he knows from experience sometimes a forced departure from your loved ones is out of your control, he tries to dampen the impact of an eventual fallout by concealing how much he cares. He has a consistent track record of putting up barriers, self-isolating, and suppressing his emotions, often only sharing his true feelings with Gabumon when he's on the brink. It's because of this that I believe a lot of times when Matt really lets loose with his emotions, they tend to be more extreme, like when he's angry or frustrated. But let's get back to Matt and Ty's conversation. Matt ends the talk abruptly and runs off to play his harmonica, which is a great outlet for expressing pent-up emotions. But it's because he ran off that he and Gabumon are separated from the group when Digimon attacks. Without pausing to think of the consequences, Matt dives into the water and swims after the monster to try and get its attention away from TK and the others. And it works, but it seems he really didn't give too much thought to what would happen after that. Fortunately, Gabumon digivolves and is able to defeat Digimon and save the day. But this won't be the last instance of Matt acting recklessly or having conflicts with Tai. In fact, by the time the two have their second big argument on screen, most of the group is already over it, asking if it's really necessary for the two to argue about everything. Tai thinks it's best for the group to climb Infinity Mountain, so they can get the lay of the land and discover all there is to see. After all, by this point, they don't even realize that they're on an island. While Matt tells Tai that the idea seems dangerous, as he reminds them that they have younger kids in the group that might find the hike difficult. He goes on to say that if Tai wants to risk his own life, that's his business, but he has no right endangering everyone else for that process. It might appear that Matt is just being defiant for its own sake, but taking a closer look, it seems most of Matt's outbursts involve his concern about the group's safety. If Tai's the de facto leader at this point, you could say Matt is its safety monitor. And though TK is the first on his list to protect, it does extend to the other members of the group. When someone, usually Tai, makes a suggestion with a high margin of risk, Matt quickly becomes defensive and confrontational, but as displayed with his incident with Digimon, Matt typically doesn't apply this risk aversion policy to himself. When the team gets separated and lands on different land masses of Foul Island, Matt goes looking for TK in the middle of a blizzard, despite Gabumon insisting that they take shelter. When Gabumon finally forces Matt to take a break, he's already on the verge of getting sick from being out in the cold with little protection from the elements. But he's unable to get an image of a cold, lost TK out of his head, and he soon heads back into the blizzard. This time he collapses after a fit of coughing, and is found by Gabumon half buried in the snow. It's only thanks to a fire and Gabumon removing his coat to keep Matt warm that he manages to recover. Shortly after Matt recovers, the two are reunited with Tai and Akumon, and as the two share a bro moment, it's clear to see that even though these two butt heads a lot, each one sees the other as a good friend. Though unfortunately, these two are like cats and dogs, and it's not long before tensions start rising. When Gabumon starts sneezing due to being without his coat for several hours, Tai asks why Gabumon is sneezing when he's the one with the fur coat. At this, Matt quickly gets heated and snaps back at Tai. Don't get me wrong, I like Matt, but he can be a lot. He's like that one friend in your friend circle that whenever you try to have a conversation with somebody else, they jump in and answer for them with an attitude. Like, chill bro, this isn't like before when Tai was teasing Gabumon. This was just a statement made from simple observation, and as Tai explained, he just wanted to know what was up so he could see if they could help him. If I was Tai, I'd be like, okay Gabumon, I'm just not going to talk to you anymore. They're able to move past the comment, but Matt is in a fighting mood. Since they learned from Frigimon that it seems each kid landed on a different island, Matt tries to brainstorm how they can reunite with the others, but Tai shoots down his ideas, which become progressively less rational. As they're getting exasperated, Tai finally exclaims that they're on the same side, and he'd be willing to help him build snowboards to find a way off the island if that's what it took, but he needs to calm down. Tai then starts talking about seeing the bigger picture, referring to Devimon's plan, how he deliberately separated them, and how they're all now on different floating islands that seem to be heading for a set course. But Matt accuses Tai about not caring about their friends, and takes off saying he would find everyone without his help, and Tai could just do whatever in this strange world. Tai manages to catch Matt and tackles him to stop him from running away. At first it seems like Tai is trying to match Matt's energy, but then his voice takes on a softer tone, as Tai starts to explain that he knows how Matt feels. Which might be true, considering that he also has a younger sibling that he's very protective of. But Matt's done talking, and he slugs Tai in the face. Well, that lasted a solid 10 minutes. but with none of the other kids around to stop them, the two end up having a brawl. They go back and forth for a bit, but when it looks like Ty's really about to lay into him, he finally breaks down, admitting that the reason he's acting so irrational is because of how sick with worry he is about TK. But there's no breathing room to be had, because after almost falling off a cliff, they get attacked by another Digimon. In the aftermath of the fight, Garurumon sees that the island that they're on is filled with black gears, and after they're destroyed, the gears repair themselves, and the island begins going in the opposite direction, back towards Infinity Mountain. This kind of proves Ty's right about turning their immediate focus on the one pulling the strings, and with the post-battle clarity, Matt realizes even if he's not there to protect TK, he still has Patamon to look after him, the same way that he has Gabumon to look after him. After the group defeats Devimon, and Genai gives the group the task of going to the server continent, Matt gets into another fight with, yep, you guessed it, Mimi, of course. Nah, not really. Matt actually barely talks directly to Mimi this whole series. It's Ty. Again. So what are they arguing about this time, you ask? Well, Ty thinks they should listen to the strange hologram man to get answers on what they're actually doing in this world. Matt says they should stay on the island because if they stay here, at least they know what they'll be dealing with. And I think it's important to reiterate here that Matt is not a coward. He's already shown great feats of bravery even this early in the story, some of which we've already referenced. He's not argumentative just for the sake of causing conflict. But when it comes to something that might put the group in danger, Matt's knee-jerk reaction is to act in opposition. But he changes his tune when TK and the others voice that they believe leaving the island would be the right thing to do, in spite of the risk. As the group continues their adventures on server, we see Matt has mellowed out quite a bit. When Ty goes on a power trip, Matt doesn't get violent even though he's opposed to Ty's methods. He listens to Sora and decides to trust the process. However, when it turns out that he was right to doubt Ty, he doesn't shove it in Ty's face. Don't get it twisted though, he wasn't about to let Ty off the hook. But when he saw how remorseful Ty was, he saw that there was really no need, proving once more, Matt is not argumentative without a purpose, because if there was a time he could justify going in on Ty, this would be it. In addition, we see Matt embracing that role as a group protector, while he stays behind to watch over the younger group members when the team splits up to infiltrate Edamon's base. And we even see his more rebellious side when he convinces Izzy to sneak out with him against Piximon's orders to investigate the signals that they're getting from their crests. During the late-night crest hunt, Matt admits to Izzy he has other reasons for pursuing his crest in addition to helping his partner digivolve further. He says that he hopes this power will allow him to be able to evolve as well, though he's not sure what it looks like. The desire for improvement and self-discovery is there, and are very important to Matt. Matt is surprisingly open with his inner desires here, though it seems Matt can only have these vulnerable conversations one-on-one, and this might be one of the reasons he opted not to bring Gabumon and Tetamon with them. All in all, we do see Matt's attitude change a lot in this arc. But I believe one of the most impactful character moments for Matt happened off-screen. This conclusion is based on the implications of the group splitting up in Ty's absence. When Ty returns to the digital world, we get Tokomon's account of what happened to the others and why he's all alone, though what we hear is an abridged version. It starts with Sora sneaking off in the middle of the night, saying she's going to go look for Ty, and she asks Tokomon to keep it a secret. Then one by one, each member of the team departs until only Matt and TK are left. Then Matt leaves, saying he will be back in a few hours, only to never return. So, this account does seem odd, and it leaves a lot of holes, but I think by asking the right questions and reflecting on the patterns we've established so far, we can begin to paint a clearer picture of what likely happened during this foggy time period. So let's start. We know immediately after the Edamon fight, the group searched the surrounding area for Ty to no avail. Once it becomes clear that finding Ty would not be an easy task, they needed to decide how they would proceed. Besides Ty, Matt is easily the most assertive person in the group, and I think it was at this point Matt took on the leadership role. Now remember, the group does not have an official leader at this point, so when I say took on the leadership role, I mean in action. Matt begins to call the shots. I believe Matt had them thoroughly search the area for a few days, as it seems to be the case with Tokomon's retelling. So if this is supposed to be a group effort, why does Sora leave in the dead of night to search for Ty alone? Finding Ty seems to be in everyone's best interest, right? Well, I think after some time, Matt called off the search for Ty. This might have been because they had been in the desert for several days and it was getting harder to find food and water. It could have been because they ran into some of Edamon's scattered forces, or maybe he just thought it was time to cut their losses and return to the focus on getting back home. This decision was likely met with some pushback, as the others were likely unwilling to call off the search, which would cause conflict. Well, as we know, Matt typically responds to conflict in one of three ways. He gets loud and aggressive, he isolates, or he gets violent. And I believe it's our first choice that occurs here. Matt likely shut down any opposition towards giving up the search for Ty. Not because he didn't care, but because he too was likely tired, frustrated, and probably a little scared. Matt always acts in what he thinks is best for the group, so if he was calling off the search for Tai, it was probably because he believed it would be harmful for them to continue. But we do see he often has an issue directly communicating that. Judging by what we've seen from the group so far, none of the remaining members really has the aptitude to overrule Matt when he's going full emo. But it doesn't mean that they're all willing to comply with all his demands. And we now get an explanation for Sora's late night departure. If Matt decreed it was against the rules to continue the search for Tai, or if it was an action that would lead to another fight, then it would make sense why she had to sneak off in order to do it, and also provide a reason on why she told Togemon to keep it a secret. The others' departures are less detailed, but we do hear from some of the others' accounts they individually were looking for Tai when they broke off from the group, so it seems some of the others probably felt the same as Sora. Though it is possible to say with 100% certainty how things went down, I can't imagine someone like Mimi, who's also had quite a few emotional outbursts, storm off on her own with Palmon, not unlike an incident that happened with Izzy earlier in the series, and Matt being unsure of how to handle it. What we do know for certain from Togemon's account is that it was everyone else that left them, and at no point did Matt and TK decide to split from the group. We also know, based on Matt's previous behavior, that it's not likely that he would support people going off on their own to look for Tai, especially when it became a theme that those who left never came back. After just Matt and TK left, we see Matt having what seems to be a many times repeated conversation with TK about how there's no point in continuing to look for the others, and this includes Tai. He explains to TK that it was the conflicting ideals of each group member that caused them to leave the group.
We just had different ideas of what was the best thing to do, TK. We've looked everywhere, TK. If they were anywhere in this area, we would have found them.
We could have missed something. We gotta keep searching. Come on, Matt. If we hurry, we could still catch up.
Hey, it's hopeless, all right? We've already done everything we could.
And now you can take a generous pinch of salt to this theorized happenings if you please, but I think it helps to better explain a few scenarios that we'll discuss in detail later. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Why didn't Matt return to TK? While investigating what was beyond the lake, Matt and Gabumon run into Joe and Gomamon, only to discover that the two of them have been scammed into working at a restaurant. After hearing the full story, Matt promises to help Joe out of the situation by working with him to pay off his debt. Joe is moved by Matt's kindness, but Matt addresses this as if it was the most natural thing in the world, and honestly it's not. If you find a friend that's willing to take on your problems as their own, with no other incentive than to lend you a hand, then you found yourself a real one. Some might think it's cold how Matt dismissed the idea of searching for the others, but remember, while Tai is more of a big picture guy, Matt has more of a here and now way of looking at things. And once more, I'll refer back to the initial personality index we discussed in the beginning. Because of Matt's childhood experience, he's always subconsciously prepared for when he'll have to be separated from the people he cares about. So the others leaving was just the natural progression of things in Matt's head. But the way Matt decides to help Joe with no reservation is a reminder of how selfless of a friend Matt can be. But they run into a snag. Matt intends to return to TK and bring him to the restaurant before settling in to help Joe. But Digitamon threatens Matt mafia style, saying if he leaves, there's a high probability his friends might have a little accident. Recognizing Joe might be in immediate danger, Matt returns to the restaurant, hoping TK will be alright while he handles the situation. Matt's decision here might seem like a bit of a stretch, but another way to look at it is how much Matt has grown. Unlike when they were separated before, Matt decides to trust Togemon to take care of TK while he's away. Even so, Matt is openly frustrated with the situation, which is a statement since Matt will usually hide how he's feeling. After 20 minutes of being with Joe, Matt concludes that Joe is completely hopeless and is convinced if he does leave, Joe might end up taking a swim with the fishes. Since Joe can see Matt is clearly frustrated, he asks Matt what's up, including why he decided not to go and get TK. This of course touches a raw nerve, causing Matt to snap at Joe. When he realizes he wasn't being fair, he quickly apologizes and swiftly redirects the conversation to the positive, sure that by them working together, they will have Joe's debt paid in no time. For the next 2 weeks or so, our heart-severing of reality. Between the sabotage and Joe's natural clumsiness, the situation seems to be getting worse and not better. We see in spite of Matt's best efforts to bottle up his emotion, he can't hide his growing frustration with the situation. One day, while playing some music to relieve some stress, Digimon approaches him, telling him that Joe is purposely sabotaging their efforts. Matt doesn't really believe the accusation. I mean, really, what would be Joe's endgame if he were? A doubt comes in when Matt thinks that it really does seem like Joe makes a completely unnatural amount of mistakes, and no one else appears to be around when it happened. The next day, when Joe breaks yet another stack of plates and claims he was pushed by something no one else could see, Matt's about had it. He lays into Joe and leaves to cool off. It's about this time when Tai and TK show up. While the brothers reunite, Tai gets the rundown of the situation by Joe, and once he's caught up, Tai suggests that they pull the old dine and dash. Tai suggests this as the most obvious solution, mentioning that they didn't even bother to set up guards to watch them. But surprisingly, Matt objects to this. Even though he believes that their situation is unfair, he does not suspect foul play, and thus Matt is inclined to keep his word until the debt is paid. But then he starts bad-mouthing Joe, repeating the lies told to him by Digimon. Tai jumps in to defend Joe, but the dam has burst, and a month's worth of frustration is erupting from Matt's mouth. He begins going in on Tai, saying it's his fault that the group split up, and saying that he has some nerve trying to interject, when he's the root of the problem. Seeing that Matt is going off the rails, TK tries to interject, but Matt shuts him down harshly too. Matt seems to be on the verge of resigning from the group and taking TK with him, but Digimon stupidly decides to show up, and he's quickly identified by the others as a shadow entity that has been sabotaging the group and putting them against one another. With that out in the open, a fight breaks out, and Joe puts himself on the line in order to save TK. And although he's in pain, he tells Ikakumon to back up Garurumon instead of coming to his aid. Matt witnesses this and realizes he was being a terrible friend to doubt him. But it goes even deeper than that. Matt reflects that he was wrong to believe he could succeed on his own, and refers to how easily he was deceived. He begins to understand his friends don't just make them a stronger team, but they make him stronger as an individual. With this revelation, Matt's crush begins to glow, and Garurumon gets the power to digivolve to the ultimate level and defeats Digitamamon. After the fight, Matt gives a heartfelt apology to Joe, showing once more Matt is both able and willing to own up to his behavior, once he's calmed down. But notice he still does get quite embarrassed when being honest about his feelings. After the group reunites, and the team is attempting to get through the gates of the real world, Matt does something quite unsurprising, and gives Tai his endorsement as official team leader. This is without any other official prompting, and this is why I push the theorized details of how the group split up. You think out of everyone, Matt would be the last person to give Tai an endorsement, but after experiencing how difficult it was to try to keep a team together, and witnessing how Tai easily became everyone's rallying point, Matt recognizes he's the best candidate for the job. But even though Matt is the first to acknowledge Tai's leadership ability, it's not long before Matt begins to criticize. I'm gonna guess that most of you can relate to at least one of the following scenarios. Either you've been in a leadership role, you've worked closely with the current leader of your group or organization, or you used to be the leader of your current organization, or at least one similar to it. Beginning with the second, if you've ever worked closely with a leader, you've probably thought at least once, I could do that, or I could probably do a better job than them. To those of you who have only been in this category, or haven't experienced the other two in a while, I cannot say whether or not you would be a superior leader if given the opportunity. I can only inform you or remind you that it's often a lot harder than it looks. Those of you who have been in a leadership position probably know that you ended up dealing with a lot of things you didn't necessarily sign up for, or that a lot of the policies and strategies that you put into place made sense on paper, but in practicality proved inefficient. But speaking plainly, a lot of the time, being in a leadership role is harder than it looks. Tai tells the others not to worry because he has a plan to get them all home, but this plan turns out to be Tai yelling at oncoming traffic at the top of his lungs, with some lame story about needing to rush home to save his cat from a tree. Matt comments that this will never work, and that Tai looks like a fool, but Tai rounds on Matt instantly, invites him and all critics to step up to the plate. Matt accepts the challenge, but once he's in the hot seat, he falls to the pressure and finds he's at a complete loss. As Matt's shrinking in embarrassment, Tai comments, not as easy as it looks, is it? And no, it's really not. Being a leader is not a cookie-cutter task. Sometimes being a leader means you have to make a spectacle of yourself in order to put others at ease. Because of Tai's ridiculous performance and choosing not to take the others' criticism too personally, the group was able to make a game out of their problems and keep their spirits up, laughing in spite of the fact that they weren't making any progress. Tai keeps up this energy later in the episode when their travel plans get derailed and Ikakumon has to tow them across the waterway. Tai lists all the positives of the situation, declaring that it was really the best outcome. This incident will mark the only major conflict Matt has until they return to the digital world, but it doesn't mean that he won't have some key character moments. We get one of two after the team beat Myotismon, and the prophecy is revealed. Leading up to the big moment that Matt and Tai are set to face the firing squad of Hope and Light, Matt approaches Tai with what's clearly false confidence. Matt's scared, and he's sure Tai is too, and why shouldn't they be? These two powerful beings are about to shoot them, and they're supposed to just smile and take it, while hoping prophecy magic will save them. The thing is, I don't think Matt is trying to be convincing here. It seems more like he's reaching out to Tai, saying, I know we're both scared, but at least we can be there for each other. So in order to help them preserve their macho personas and experience the comfort of having a hand to hold in uncertain times, Matt creates for them a flimsy facade where they each hold onto each other just to make sure that they don't chicken out and run away at the moment of truth. After the final confrontation with Maidosama at the TV station, the second big event occurs, after the battle but just before the children return to the digital world. This is when we see Matt's first on-screen interaction with his mom. Over the progression of the series, we see Matt slowly begin to open up about his feelings to members of the group, and we've seen a lot of the results of Matt being more comfortable letting down his guard. But when we see him with his mom, we see those walls instantly come back up. Matt isn't disrespectful to her or anything like that, but he definitely factory resets to his default mode we discussed at the start of our analysis. Though we see how much Matt cares about TK, feels responsible for protecting him, and how much he values spending time with him, even in the nuanced things, like taking the extra train trip to drop him off with his mom. When his mom is thanking him for looking after TK, Matt pretends the whole thing is a minor inconsequential action. Mind you, this isn't the, "oh, it was no problem, I was happy to do it" type of response. His mom even tries to press him for a more appropriate reaction, but Matt doesn't budge. It's as if he's afraid to show how much he cares. This is Matt's primitive shield to block the pain he's endured from his parents' divorce, and it further supports this coping mechanism has shaped a large part of his personality. But he obviously still cares a lot about his mom, in spite of everything else, as he gets embarrassed when he says that they need to return to the digital world to save her as well.
The whole world is doomed if we don't do something, Mom. You know we have to go back. We're doing this to protect you.
After the group returns to the digital world, Matt faces his biggest character challenge. The catalyst for this occurs after the team defeats Metal Digimon. As Tai and Koromon rejoin the others, we see a somber scene as Mimi has erected grave markers to honor their friends who have fallen in battle. Tai tries to raise the team's spirits by promising them that there will be payback for all their fallen friends, but the team has passed their limits and they don't even want to think about fighting anymore. Matt proved once again that he's much better at discerning the emotional capacity of the group than Tai, as he correctly diagnoses this. Unfortunately, as we already know, Matt is pretty awful at communicating those emotions, especially when he himself is experiencing them. He says some pretty hurtful things to Tai, accusing him of being heartless and not caring that their friends died. He goes further to disassociate Tai from the group, framing him as an unfeeling, bloodthirsty general, and tells Tai if he'd be so gracious as to allow them a second to catch their breaths, they would go back to fighting his war. Matt's outburst only serves to make things worse for the group. The tension continues to rise, and Puppetmon takes advantage of the situation to inflict further turmoil on the group. When the team gets separated by Puppetmon's trap, Matt ends up alone with TK. He takes a moment to continue ripping on Tai, but TK snaps back at him, telling him to stop being mean to Tai, and goes further to say that it was the strength of everyone working together that allowed them to make it this far. A lesson Matt learned at the diner, when his quest first activated, but it seems like he might have forgotten in the moment. TK goes on to tell Matt to quit being so overbearingly protective. Since he's held his own in the group so far, he should have proven himself capable by now. TK's rebuke leaves Matt stunned, and he's caught without a rebuttal at the moment. He's not just shaken about being framed in the wrong, but he's surprised at how independent TK has become. But in case there was any doubt, shortly after this conversation, TK is whisked away by Puppetmon, and Matt is losing his grip with worry, taking another step backward from what he learned earlier with being able to trust TK and Patamon. He begins lashing out at the others, but when things start getting dicey, Gabumon finds that he's unable to digivolve, and Matt sees that his quest refuses to glow, marking yet another milestone of his growth has been lost. Matt is in the middle of yelling at Sora for allowing Birdramon to destroy henchmen that might have been a potential lead to TK, when TK himself comes running towards the group, announcing he managed a major victory over Puppetmon. Matt is obviously relieved to see him, but as he watches the other praising TK, he becomes extremely burdened by his previous actions, as well as his recent conversation with TK. He walks off into the woods once more, choosing the path of isolation, and it's not long before the group is out looking for him.
We're always walking around searching for someone.
You know, I'm not so sure we should be trying to find him. Everyone needs to be alone sometimes. I should know.
So, we've talked a lot about isolation in this review, and since Gabumon speaks up here, we can take a moment to extrapolate. To put it in simple terms, there are two types of isolation. Sometimes you need some quiet time away from the chaos to cool down, collect your thoughts, and reflect on your platitudes. This is the healthy type of isolation Gabumon is referring to, and typically results in the individual feeling calmer, rested, and focused. Then there's a negative form of isolation that leaves the individual feeling cut off, left out, lonely, and confused. We've seen Matt practice healthy isolation as a coping mechanism when he runs off to be by himself and plays harmonica. But the majority of the time, Matt falls into the negative isolation category, where he's consumed by anxiety, paranoia, and negative thoughts, which is what happens now. When Matt is alone with Gabumon, we see Matt falling into a serious spell of self-doubt. He recognizes that everyone else has become better, stronger, improved in some way, except for himself. He begins to wonder if the others have outgrown him. Matt's turmoil hits harder when you take into account his desire for self-improvement that drove him to go after his crest. But if his crest won't even glow anymore, then clearly he's going backwards. He sees himself as a failure. As Matt is drowning in self-doubt, Cherrymon moves in to put the final nail in the coffin. He tells Matt that if he really wants to change, he'll need to defeat his greatest obstacle, which of course turns out to be Tai. At first, Matt is not taking the bait. He sees it as a sick joke or an obvious trap. Matt is getting ready to walk away and leave the tree in the dust, but when Cherrymon uses his trump card, Matt is powerless in no smart part because he's subconsciously been doing it all along his journey. What exactly is this trump card, you ask? You should know, you've done it, and so have I. Just about everyone who's watched Digimon has done. I bet some of you are doing it right now. And that is comparing Matt and Tai. And I have to say, these two have a truly outstanding rivalry. As you all know, rivalries in anime are quite common. Almost everyone's got one. But when you think of even some of the most iconic rivalries, I'd say a lot of them really don't even measure up to Matt and Tai. Think about it. Goku Vegeta, Naruto or Sasuke, Kaiba or Yugi, Ash or Gary. Regardless of who you choose to root for, it's always pretty clear who's right and who's wrong. One character is near flawless, and the other is borderline evil. But with Matt and Tai, it's quite different. Both of these characters are great in their own way, but they're also shown to be quite flawed, and require a lot of growth through the duration of the series. And besides this specific incident, there's not a clear distinction on who's wrong and who's right. It's more circumstantial, and better described as who's more right or who's less wrong in a specific scenario, which often comes down to a manner of how you choose to view it.
I wonder how Matt would vote. Knowing him, he'd probably go the safe route.
Cherrymon attacks Matt's insecurities, pointing out that he's inferior to Tai, cursed to live in his shadow, and the only way that he can escape this fate is to prove himself Tai's equal or better. As Matt falls deeper into his self-doubt, Gabumon shares some very powerful words of wisdom. Alright, last service announcement for this video, so listen up everyone. Comparing yourself to other people is a very unhealthy practice. Judging your self-worth by how you measure up to someone else is not only harmful and devaluing, it's also inaccurate. At best, it can give you a false sense of superiority, and at worst, it can cause excessive heartache and self-loathing, for you not measuring up to something that you were never meant to be. You can think of it like comparing a wrench to a hot dog. You might think, this hot dog is useless. Why would I need a hot dog when I need to tighten this loose screw? But later on, when you're hungry, you'll wish you still had that hot dog. People are created differently to serve different purposes. So instead of devaluing yourself, wondering why you can't do something as well as someone else, utilize that energy in finding what your purpose is. Alright, back to the review. Well, with the dark place Matt is at now, even Gabumon's wisdom can't pull him out. So Gabumon does the next best thing. He dives down to meet Matt in his sorrow, and assures Matt no matter what happens, he will not go through it alone, because right or wrong, Gabumon will not leave his side. This declaration of loyalty and show of unwavering friendship reminds Matt what friendship is all about, and his crest starts glowing again. And after they've powered up, the two approach the group with icy resolve. It's kinda sad to see how happy everyone is to see them, only to be forced into a fight. It's another testament to how disorienting isolation can be. Matt believes the team is better off without him, and people don't really want or need him. But in reality, the group has been worried about them, and is overjoyed when they return. A big fight gets interrupted by a reminder that they really should be saving the world about now. Once more, in the post-battle clarity, Matt realizes how wrong it was to attack Tai. Given what just happened, he can't be convinced that being part of the group is the best thing right now. So he leaves with Pseudomon, saying that he'll be back when he gets his head straight. So in the end, Matt still chooses the path of isolation, but leaving the group on peaceful terms seems to show this round of isolation will be a healthy one. And yes, we are cheating a bit, because when the group is in trouble, we see Matt pop in to intervene in the fight with Puppetmon. Matt and Metal Garurumon are overflowing with friendship, and since that appears to be Puppetmon's greatest weakness, he's completely powerless against them. But it's in the last battle, when Tai and the others need him most, that Matt returns to the group to close his character arc. Tai beaten and barely conscious, Matt scoops Tai into his arms and finally confesses his feelings. Of friendship. Of undying friendship. Cool it, Taito fans.
You nasty.
And with the power of friendship, the day was saved. Honestly, in a world where the power of friendship can be weaponized as an actual power source, Matt really should be more OP, but I digress. So there you have it, our character analysis of Matt Ishida, our cool and cautious co-leader, and how he overcame trauma and isolation through the bonds of friendship. Matt is a complex character, and easily one of the most layered characters in Digimon. He has his hang-ups, true, but he's proven he'll always be there when his friends need him most. And as they say, a friend in need is a friend indeed. Sora is the wielder of the Crest of Love, and probably the most well-balanced character in the original Digidestined team. But a closer analysis could reveal this character is a lot less cut and dry than she might appear at first glance. Hey guys, this is D Reaper, and today we're doing a character analysis on Sora Takenouchi. If you're new to the channel, then you might be interested in knowing that this is part of a series where we analyze all the original Digidestined characters. If you're interested in this type of content, be sure to check the playlist to catch up on the characters we've already discussed. And also be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll know when we do the next one. For everyone else, we've got a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Sora is one of the few Digidestins to instantly get Ty's approval during the introduction, and after a few episodes, it's pretty easy to see why. Sora is very kind and nurturing, but at the same time, she's pretty tough and quite reliable. She seems to have a healthy mix of the most positive character traits, allowing her to fill the role of whatever the group needs most in any given situation. When Ty, Matt, and Joe are getting worked up about climbing Infinity Mountain, Sora shouts down all three of them, getting them to return to their immediate focus on the current issue of shelter. And later on, when Joe leaves to climb the mountain solo, even though she immediately recognizes he might be in danger, she doesn't panic. She alerts the others and goes along with Ty to come to Joe's rescue. But even while she's playing superhero, Sora still manages to distinguish herself as one of the strongest emotional pillars in the group, as she's one of the main people who deals with Mimi's breakdowns and comforts TK when he's scared or crying. With this seamless blend of strength and kindness, it's no wonder many of the others see Sora as the mother hen of the group. Even though the team is split up by Digimon, Sora and Beamon seem to be doing alright on their own. But when Joe and Gomamon wash up on their island, Sora agrees to make Joe their leader, and feigns helplessness in order to boost his confidence. Even though Joe proves to be an insufficient leader, both turning into a tyrant almost immediately, and then tried to shirk the leadership role as soon as it got tough. Sora persisted and continued to push Joe until he managed to get his act together, thus allowing him to get out of his funk and grow as a character. So far, Sora seems to be a near flawless character. Even through the Edomon arc, while some of the other characters are changing up their roles a bit, Sora remains the same consistent voice of reason, strength, and stability for the group. And as positive as Sora is for the group's dynamic, characters without issues tend to be kind of boring. Now, if you've been following along with us in this series, then you should know, often the character writing in Digimon is very good, though it tends to be nuanced. Meaning they typically won't just jump out and tell you X, Y, and Z about a character, but they'll scatter pieces of a puzzle and it's up to the viewer to put them together. And Sora is no exception. Oftentimes, it's the people that seem like they have everything put together on the surface that have the deepest internal turmoil. This might be an effort to mask one's inner feelings, or it could be the effort to appease a monster of their own creation. Sora appears to show signs of both. It isn't until after the Edomon arc that Sora gets her first major character challenge. After Ty and Agumon go missing, Sora and Beamon depart from the group to find them, and you can see our character analysis on Matt for Reaper's theory on how exactly this played out. And I'll have the analysis machine leave a link to that right about here. Also, I'll note, even though I do believe that the others fell apart without Ty to guide them forward, I do think Sora's departure was almost as influential to dividing the team. It was clear to see that the group was lost without Ty. But Sora being the first domino to create the chain reaction, as well as Sora's personality kind of being a glue that holds others together, I tend to believe the group would have held together quite a bit longer had she not been absent. So, what was the reason behind her absence anyway? When she initially departed from the group, her language and demeanor seemed to show that she had every intention of returning. So, what happened? Well, shortly after leaving the group, Sora and Beamon overheard Myodasmon and his henchmen plotting against the group, where he discloses that they mustn't allow the children to activate their crests, because it's the only way they will have the power to stop them. He also alludes to this being the key to them fulfilling their destiny and being able to leave this world. And how exactly do they activate their crests? It's tied deeply to embodying the trait of the corresponding crest symbol. When Digimon catches wind of her, he laughs in Sora's face, saying that she'll never be able to make her crest glow, because she doesn't even know what love is. When Sora hears this, she's absolutely crushed, so much so she can't even bring herself to face the others, though we don't immediately find out why. Sora spends several weeks helping the group from the shadows, watching over TK until Ty arrives, helping Joe at the restaurant, and talking some sense into Mimi when she goes full psycho. Even while keeping her distance, Sora still manages to be a major positive impact on the group. When Sora is the last group member missing, the others are trying to connect the dots on Sora, as some of them are sure that they've seen or at least heard her recently. They are puzzled on why she doesn't just show herself. As they're deliberating this, the group is attacked by an evil Digimon. When it looks like the others might be in trouble, Birdramon appears and helps them out. The group is excited, knowing if Birdramon is here, that means Sora is close by. But instead of landing and joining them, Birdramon flies off. The group gives chase, and with some effort, they're able to corner Sora and ask her what's going on. After some prompting from Beamon, Sora decides to confess to the group what she's learned about the crests. After hearing this, the group's reaction is generally positive. After all, learning how to activate their crest is a good thing, and some testimonials from some of the other members whose Digimon have reached the ultimate level verify Sora's explanation. The others can't fathom why this information would be upsetting. After Tai hears the story, he's relieved, saying he was afraid it might have been something serious, and tries to wave the whole thing off. And at first, it might seem like Tai is being insensitive, but truly, his reaction is justified. It's as if the known internet troll comments, "Hey, I think you're lame" on your profile. And it's like, of course he would say something like that. He's a known liar and a creep. Nothing that comes off his mouth should be taken seriously. But of course, it goes deeper than that. I don't know how Digimon has the access to all the Digidestined characters' profiles, but as stated before, he seems to have the details to push just the right buttons. And for Sora, her concept of love is a very sensitive topic. Though the others can't fathom why this information would be upsetting. Tai comments that her crest of love is a perfect fit for her, but Sora yells at him, saying he's wrong, and they don't know the first thing about her. With a little more prodding, she gives the group a picture of her relationship with her mother, by recounting she and her mother's interaction after Sora was injured playing soccer. The day Sora's team is supposed to be participating in the final qualifying match, Sora is forced to stay home by her mom, to give her injury more time to heal. Sora insists she can play through the pain, because she doesn't want to let her team down. But Sora's mom won't hear any of it. As if this wasn't bad enough, her mom tells her it's about time that she leave things like soccer behind, and focuses her attention on the ins and outs of running the flower shop. This causes Sora to explode in anger, asking why her mom can't understand how important soccer is to her, and she runs out of the house. She later runs across her teammates, who are devastated from having lost their match. And we see Sora hanging her head and averting her gaze in shame, the same way she has been behaving since explaining the reason for her actions to the group, and likely anticipating the same shame when the others will need her to activate her crest, only to be disappointed to find out she cannot. Now, even with this incident as reference, Sora's reaction still may seem a bit dramatic, but allow Reba to push back a bit more. I think the sports scenario is a very good example situation, and Reba will get to exactly why that is in a second. But first, I'd like you to put yourself in Sora's position, and you might be surprised to find that you've been here before. It doesn't have to be a sport, it can be whatever you're passionate about. Art, music, a relationship, or a career path. Whenever you're very passionate about something and the people in your inner circle don't seem to be able to understand how much it means to you, that can create a dissonance. The reason I believe sports makes a prime example for Sora's scenario is because for a lot of young people, being a part of a sports team is their first real experience with being part of something that's larger than themselves. Adding passion to the sense of purpose only exemplifies those feelings, and with that in mind, it's no wonder Sora gets upset when her mom tries to mitigate its significance. But let's keep in mind, Sora isn't just saying she doesn't believe her mom really loves her. Her current concern is that she doesn't know if she's capable of loving, partially due to the fact that she's not convinced she even knows what love really is. For further context, Sora is an only child, and her father is often away for months at a time because of work. So her mom is her primary custodian, and I believe that the fact that Sora doesn't feel close to her mom, in spite of this, hurts her, and also makes her feel like something is very wrong with her. Tai and Matt try to help in their own way. Tai by making jokes and bashing Digimon, but admits himself he's not great in these situations, while Matt says to let her be and get her emotions out. And speaking of Matt, we did talk about the distorting effects of isolation in Matt's analysis, and the rationality that comes with insecurities in TK's analysis, and it seems we're seeing some of both play out here as well.
It appears that there are a lot of references to Matt in these Digimon character analyses.
Well, Matt is one of the most layered characters in the group, so we did cover a lot of ground with him. But similar to Matt, isolating herself from the group only seems to further skew her perspective, as the others see her actions and behaviors towards them as definitive proof that she's a loving person. And of course her friends are a much more reliable source than Digimon. But when it comes to a person's insecurities, it's easy to believe regardless of the source. In spite of the proof presented to her that she's likely being too hard on herself, Sora yells back at the others, essentially saying, "I can't even say with confidence that I love my own mother, and you guys are just people." She even goes as far as to say she doesn't care about the group, and makes an attempt to discard her tag and crest, as if its very existence is mocking her. Fortunately, TK is there to take care of the situation, and he lets Sora know how special their relationship is to him, as he reveals he doesn't miss his mom so much when she's around. He's able to get through to Sora when no one else can, at least enough to calm her down a bit. Her cries of frustration and bitterness become tears of gratitude and remorse. Later that night, Digimon gets injured protecting Sora during an enemy ambush. As the fight goes on and the group are getting backed into a corner, the injured Digimon tries to join the others, but Sora holds her back and the two start arguing. Biyomon questions why Sora can't understand something as simple as, our friends are in trouble, I have to fight. And Sora questions how Biyomon can't understand that going into a dangerous situation when you're already injured is foolishness. As they try to get each other to understand their own viewpoints, Sora realizes that she sounds just like her mother did, and starts to realize that the issue wasn't that their relationship lacked love. There was just a misunderstanding in how they were communicating it with each other. With this revelation, Sora can say with no doubt the feelings that she has for Biyomon is indeed love, and her crest begins glowing, showing Sora has taken a major step closer to understanding both her mom and herself. When the group returns to the real world, we see consistent evidence that Sora is a compassionate person, like when she gives up her seat on the train to make room for a woman and her baby. And later in the arc, when Myotismon starts terrorizing the town, Sora is taken prisoner along with most of the civilians in the area, but even though she's in a tough situation, she goes around encouraging people who seem to be having the most difficult time.
We've got some powerful friends. Besides, we've got truth and justice and all that good stuff on our side.
Even separated from her partner, and the odds stacked against them, Sora encourages the others to fight back, using the same method she and Joe used to defeat the Bakuman when they were on the island. And even though the rebellion was relatively short-lived, her efforts were enough to inspire others to do the same, and it caused enough commotion for her to be found by Biyomon and her mom. In the brief reunion, we see that there's a lot these two want to say to each other, as by now Biyomon has helped them both realize how the other feels. But with the enemies closing in, Sora's mom urges her to take the window to escape, and she does so, albeit reluctantly, with a promise to return with help. When the fighting's over, the call to return to the digital world is quite abrupt. Only a few of the kids get to have a brief conversation with some of their family members before jumping into the Digi-portal. We see Sora a bit downcast, as it looks like she won't get to say goodbye to her mom, when she suddenly hears her mom's voice telling her that she loves her and will be awaiting her safe return. Sora mutters a quiet goodbye, likely adhering to the status quo of their misinterpreted relationship. But then she gives into her feelings and yells a heartfelt goodbye at the top of her lungs, showing things are surely changing for the better between her and her mom. When the group ends up splitting for various reasons, Sora sticks with the majority to tackle the main objective, which is vital, especially because Tai relies on Sora a lot. And speaking of him, another positive trait to add to Sora's repertoire is how she submits to Tai. But let's break this down so there's no misunderstanding.
But Reaper, I don't ever want to have to submit to anyone.
That's great, champ. But if you ever want to hold a job, be part of a team, or get along with a group, it's probably something that you should learn to do. These days, submission is seen kind of as a dirty word, especially when it involves a female doing the submitting. But in reality, all it means is deferring to a recognized authority, which in this case is the elected leader of the group. Now, I don't want to make it sound like submitting is easy. It's not. It takes a measure of humility, and it also means accepting the decision of the person, even if you don't completely agree, because submitting to another person means that they have the final say. So, does that mean when you submit to someone, it has to be with head down, mouth shut, and mind blank? By no means, but let's observe Sora and Tai's interaction for an example of the healthy submission Sora practices. In this instance, the team's fighting force has been cut nearly in half, and the team is forced into making a difficult decision on whether or not to risk going deeper into enemy territory or retreat and regroup, even though it might lead to dealing with reinforcements later. Tai takes longer than usual to come to a decision, but eventually he does.
All we've been through, he can't really be thinking about going.
All right, we're going.
And with Sora's inner dialogue, we know that this was the last thing she was expecting. But pay attention to how she addresses her concern.
I'll go along with your decision, but I'm still not sure it's safe.
I know it's dangerous, Sora, and we're not looking for trouble, but if anything happens, Koromon and I will hold off Puppetmon while you take the others and escape. I won't let anything happen to you.
You mean it?
Of course I do.
Okay then.
The first thing she does is assure Tai that she's willing to go along with his decision, which is a very wise way to proceed. One, it communicates that she's not going to get into a power struggle with Tai, which is particularly significant considering Matt's recent departure, and it communicates that she's willing to trust Tai. And once she's made it clear that Tai still has her support, she voices her concern that she believes this decision might be too dangerous. With this clearly laid out communication, when Tai responds, he knows he doesn't have to be defensive or worry if Sora is planning to leave the team or attempt a mutiny. So he's able to quickly communicate his thoughts and put Sora's mind at ease so that they can catch up with the others. And that's ideal. Not only was Sora considerate of Tai, she was honest with her own feelings, which took guts, because not only was she in opposition with the team leader, she already lost the majority vote. But through her tactful communication, she didn't have to struggle in her head, resenting Tai for making a decision that she didn't agree with. And I strongly encourage anyone watching to try this method whenever handling disagreements in your own circles. Whether it's a boss, a parent, or a project leader, don't start with protests or accusations. Instead, begin with submission or affirmation, then present your point. you might be surprised by how far you can get. Okay, back to Sora. As mentioned, with the team divided, Tai relies on Sora a bunch, and Sora is in full mama bear mode, doing her best to keep everyone safe. And we can see more evidence of the special relationship she has with TK, as she speaks with him about responsibility, among other things. And we also see that she has a big motivation to be strong for TK's sake, perhaps in part to make up for leaving him for so long when Tai was missing, something she and Biyomon knew before they left would upset him. But nearing the last confrontation, we see the pressure starting to crack her. When Tai sends her and TK to gather the others for the final fight, things are looking pretty bleak. She knows Tai's putting himself in harm's way in the hope that she will return with the team before he and War Greymon's strength gives out. But as they are searching the barren digital world with no response from the Digivice, she begins to give in to the hopelessness of the situation. When TK asks Sora for affirmation that they can really do this, Sora almost breaks and lets TK know what she's really thinking, that this is a hopeless quest. But she manages to swallow her feelings for his sake and assures him that they will make it in time. Their search leads them to an area of the digital world where darkness runs rampant, and once Sora touches down, the darkness zeroes in on her suppressed negative energy and consumes her. When Sora is enveloped in her negative cocoon, she keeps repeating the list of things she has to do. She has to find the others, she has to help Tai, she has to do better or the world will be destroyed. Even when Joe and Matt are right in front of her, letting her know that half of her objective is already complete, Sora can't be comforted by that fact. Instead, she focuses on what she hasn't done, and reprimands herself for not trying hard enough. And now we can see the root of Sora's inner turmoil, the expectation that she forces on herself. Sora is an amazing person, and she arguably does more for the team than anyone else, but no matter how much she does, it will never be enough, because there will always be more to do, and failing at just one task means she's a failure. Sora is being consumed by a monster of her own creation. Fortunately, her friends are there to help guide her through. Matt advises Sora not to cling so close to the things she needs to do, and make room for the things that she wants to do. Even leaving the darkness is not something that she has the power to do if she does it out of obligation, but she should focus on wanting to leave. This is good advice on multiple levels. Some of us can be so consumed with things we feel like we have to do, we look more like human doings than human beings. Having responsibility is good, healthy even, but if you give all of yourself to appease others, there won't be any you left for, well, you. Joe tells Sora it's not always about being the best, having the right answers, or even having a clue. He appeals to Sora's uniqueness and the team, assuring Sora that she's not alone. With their guidance, Sora is able to reach out for help and allow them to pull her out of the darkness. We might explore the darkness of the digital world at a later time, but for now let's look at the correlation of the darkness in these two characters. Matt and Sora's mannerisms are like night and day. Matt is openly moody, has conflicts with several of the other Digidestins, and makes several attempts to abdicate from the team before actually doing it. While Sora is generally upbeat, accommodates everyone, and is a force holding people together, yet they were both susceptible to this darkness because of the abundance of negative emotions that they carry. I think this can be another reminder that emotional discord has no definitive package. It can occur in all types of people, even those on completely opposite spectrums, like Sora and Matt. And finally, when Sora realizes she will not be able to escape being turned into a keychain by Paimon, she gives TK a final charge, as well as a vote of confidence, before she faces her fate without fear or hesitation. And we see that in Sora's final instructions, along with Matt's encouragement, that allow TK to maintain hope and get his partner to the next level. Wait, is Reaper indirectly promoting Sorato? Well, anyway, that should about cover it for Sora. Though she's dealing with a lot more challenges under the surface than one would initially think, she is a dutiful, nurturing, and consistent force for the Digidestined group. Regardless of the challenging circumstances or inner conflict, Sora can always be seen as someone who's always kind to others and overflowing with love. He's a prodigy, a genius, and definitely the person you'd want in your corner when you're stranded in a world of data. So why wouldn't the computer genius be the naturally selected leader of the Digidestined? And is it possible that this character's unrelenting thirst for knowledge can be something of a double-edged sword? Hey guys, this is D Reaper. Today we're gonna do a character analysis on Izzy Azumi. Since we've got a lot to cover, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Something quite distinguishing about Izzy is how he appears to be completely at home, lost in his own world in his computer. This is exactly where he is when we first meet him, and Tai expresses surprise that he drags all his computer equipment to summer camp. Right away, when the kids are thrown into the digital world, we see Izzy thinks about things very differently from other kids, or likely even most of us as a collective. How about a quick example? Let's say you're on your routine morning jog, down an easy trail near your house. Then suddenly a huge T-Rex emerges from the underbrush, and it looks pretty hungry. Most people would probably run for their lives without giving it a second thought, until maybe later, when feeling a semblance of safety, pause to wonder how a T-Rex happened to be on this previously T-Rex free route. while someone like Izzy might ask why a T-Rex was on this route. If that doesn't seem to make too much difference, just stick with us. It'll start to get clearer. With a group being pitched into an unfamiliar world, naturally they would be asking some of the most obvious questions, like how did we get here, and how do we get back home? But Izzy going beyond the how and straight to the why indicates for him the method of them being here is not nearly as fascinating as the reason, and even in the middle of frequent monster attacks, Izzy is constantly hypothesizing possible explanations to what brought them to the digital world and why. While others are exploring a mysterious factory, Izzy's content to sit alone with his computer, trying to decipher the glyphs he finds on a massive battery, attempting to harness its power. Here is where we'll find some of the fundamental basis of Izzy's behavior, as well as a prelude to the deep concepts his character projects. So, buckle up. The stark difference between Izzy's behavior and that of the other kids sparks an interesting discussion between Izzy and Tentomon, where Tentomon asks Izzy if he's satisfied being in isolation from the others, and if he ever worries that he might be missing out on the fun others are having without him. But Izzy responds that he can't imagine anything more fun than being the pioneer in the pursuit of knowledge. Their conversation takes a philosophical turn, as Izzy expresses that his desire to sate his boundless curiosity extends to uncovering the truth about the Digimon as well. To which Tentomon asks, what truth is there to uncover? I am what I am, and I'm standing right in front of you. I'm not hiding anything.
What are you theorizing about? What's the big mystery? I am who I am. I'm not hiding anything.
He then goes on to ask if the origin or the reason that a thing exists holds more precedence than the thing itself. This triggers a flashback in Izzy, where he recalls uncovering a secret his parents were keeping from him, and spoilers, Izzy is adopted, something that at the very least was very damaging to him, because of how he found out. Though because we have only limited context in exactly how this discovery was made, we kind of have a which came first, the Phoenix or the Flame scenario, or a causality dilemma for our nerdy nerds.
Notice, wouldn't the Harry Potter reference be the one for nerdy nerds?
Either way, pick your poison. Or try both if it strikes your fancy. The point we're trying to make is, we don't know if it was Izzy's natural curiosity that led him to uncovering this family secret that he wasn't ready for, or if stumbling upon this secret by chance sparked a desire to unearth all mysteries to avoid the pain of being blindsided by what happened back then. In either case, it does support the idea that knowledge can be a very powerful tool, but also very dangerous. And this is where we get the other major theme for Izzy's journey, the pitfalls of knowledge acquisition. There are more than a few endeavors that people can easily agree can lead to misfortune. Pursuit of power, vengeance, or fame, to name a few. But even though seeking knowledge for its own sake is often seen as a noble pursuit, knowledge without restraint might be one of the most damaging paths imaginable. There are several extreme examples we could mention, but let's keep things grounded. We're already getting pretty philosophical. Many of you are probably familiar with the line, "you're messing with forces that you don't understand," or some variation of that statement. This is usually a phrase used as a warning about the dangers of dealing with powerful forces without the knowledge or respect for what may result of it. I'll argue that in order to be a pioneer in the realm of knowledge, you do have to be willing to rub against this line, which of course can be quite dangerous, to not just the pursuer, but also those around them. We see this play out in real time, as things start going haywire, as Izzy somewhat successfully hacks the battery and the Digivolution program in his Digivice. But because power comes in response to a need, not a desire, it causes Tentomon an excruciating amount of pain. Izzy decides to kill the program, giving up on that particular route of information, though the behavior of the data and how it directly impacts the world leads him to understand the literal digital nature of the digital world, amongst other things. Later, when Angemon attacks, Izzy is able to replicate the Digivolution code, allowing his partner to digivolve, though when he tries to replicate it again for Patamon, it doesn't respond, and he realizes that there must be deeper layers to it. When Izzy relays his discoveries to the rest of the group, their reaction is somewhat half-hearted, which is kind of a common theme. He's like, guys, I just discovered we can hack reality in this world on a molecular level. If we can harness this power, we can be gods among men. And they're like, so what you're saying is they didn't have a food court on the other side of the building. And in their defense, most everything Izzy says goes way over their heads, so they'd hardly know how to apply the information even if they understood it. But because of this, Izzy will oftentimes talk to himself as the only person who can fully understand what he's saying, and at times become isolated from others in pursuit of information. These behaviors cause the others to sometimes give him the side-eye, and on some occasions openly mock him for his efforts. This is yet another pitfall of knowledge. Sometimes striving to understand more makes it harder for others to understand you. Izzy's isolation tendencies are like a beast that keeps feeding into itself. The more he spends time alone, the harder it is to connect with others. When the group is separated by Devimon, we see firsthand how quickly Izzy is willing to table all other aspects for the pursuit of knowledge, as when he and Tentomon stumble upon some ancient ruins, Izzy suspends the search for the others in order to investigate. Izzy is pretty dismissive toward Tentomon's suggestion to continue searching for the others, as he suspects suspects Izzy's statements about taking a quick look and just taking a minute to be false. Sure enough, when Izzy gets his computer plugged in, he completely loses track of time, completely forgetting about finding the others. Fortunately, some of the others find him, instead, as Mimi and Palmon eventually arrive at the ruins. Mimi is very happy to see him, but once she finds out it's just the two of them, she's confused at why he's just sitting there instead of searching for the others. Izzy's pretty indifferent to Mimi's arrival. He doesn't even get up when she greets him, but instead continues his work, and like with Tentomon, is pretty dismissive with Mimi's request. When the others see that there's no getting through to him in this state, they decide to sit and wait until he's done. But time is no factor when Izzy's in the zone, and after a few hours, Mimi is royally ticked off and lets him have it. Though Mimi is throwing a full-on tantrum, to be fair, she'd been very patient, especially considering her personality. But Izzy's complete lack of communication set her over the edge. Even when she was crying and yelling, Izzy seemed baffled that she could possibly be upset and claimed that he was doing important work. And for Izzy's side, that's true also. Well, at least in theory. The truth is he didn't know what secrets the ruins would uncover, but regardless of the reasoning, it really highlights Izzy's inept social skills. Even being able to say something like, "Sorry guys, this might take a little longer than I thought," or "Thank you all for being so patient. If you'll bear with me just a little bit longer." But as is, Izzy can't even register that he had a part to play in the mess. He's so unapologetic, Palmon even asks if he likes computers more than people. But proving to Mimi and Palmon that he is indeed more warm-blooded human than cold-hearted machine, when Mimi and Tentomon get lost inside the ruin maze, Izzy puts his work on hold in order to help them find a way out. However, in the aftermath of their escapade, after Centarumon shows them the significance of the ruins, but explains his power and knowledge of deeper workings are limited, Izzy proves once and for all that he sees no issue with his previous actions, as he sits down to resume his work and is already deaf to Mimi's pleading, pointing out that this is exactly what started the whole mess to begin with. It's only because Mimi accidentally resolved the situation by kicking the black gear that he didn't detach himself from Mimi and the others once again. Shortly after this, we get some consistent examples of how Tai and Izzy think differently than each other. And we're not talking about how Tai probably invested a lot more points in strength and constitution while neglecting intelligence. But if you followed our character analysis on Tai, then you should be aware that he wasn't made leader just because he has the hair for it. But he has a lot of behaviors and characteristics that make him well suited for the job. After the majority of the team links up at Primary Village, Izzy shares what he discovered about the Digivices, and after Leomon is dealt with, he gives the group the full story about Devimon, and leaves it to the group to decide whether or not they will confront Devimon. While Tai and Izzy are on the same side, Izzy's reasoning seems to take a mechanical approach to the situation. If we do what they brought us here to do, then there will be no reason not to let us leave. If we do A and B, naturally, it'll equal C. And it's the same mentality when they decide to go to server. In addition to being kind of cold, it also presents limitations to his thinking, as Izzy has complete trust in the formula, with him even stating it's impossible to lose because the Digivices are coded to oppose Devimon. Now, don't get the wrong idea.
Yes, he gets a little wrapped up in his work and doesn't always interact well with others, but he's a good boy.
In spite of his sometimes cold and calculated approach, Izzy does show compassion to others, and yes, they do in fact win the fight against Devimon, but his over-reliance on formula can sometimes narrow his vision, kind of ironic for someone with such a vast wealth of information. One instance of this is when he and Matt go on their crest hunt. When he learns that Matt wants to find his crest not just to evolve his partner to the next level, but also to achieve some form of inner growth, Izzy does show surprise at the idea of an alternative motivation besides achieving the crest's primary designated function. As the group continues their crest hunt on server, Izzy has his greatest revelation yet when they come across another coded ruins. With the knowledge he has gained from previous ruins and the information he got from hacking Edamon's network, Izzy has all the confirmation he needs about the digital world being composed of living data, and it comes with a revelation that they too have become data as residents of this world. And with that knowledge, he's able to manipulate the data to do some pretty amazing things, like pull up holograms on command, and even transport them across a great distance by sending the group like an email. But even with these signs and wonders, as Izzy's trying to explain his findings, the others quickly grow fatigued with his explanations, and before too long, they're almost mocking him again.
Is there a point to this somewhere?
That's terrific, Izzy. Great time for a geography lesson.
Pay attention and you might learn something.
Uh-oh, he's in computer dark mode. This could take a while.
Just bits of data, so I uploaded us as file attachments.
Okay, I believe you.
Hey, all this techno talk's making my head spinning.
Computer guys can never just do something, TK. That'd be too easy. They gotta spend all day telling you how they'll do it.
I think it's important to point out the group's attitude, even in times that Izzy's knowledge provides a major breakthrough, because I believe it helps further explain Izzy's reactions later on. Even with the less than supportive attitude of the others, Izzy keeps plugging away at his computer, and it's only because of his diligence that the others are able to infiltrate Edamon's base and later on rescue Sora. When the team splits up after Tai goes missing, we get further confirmation about how hard Izzy can push himself in pursuit of a goal, so much so that he can ignore hunger and fatigue. Technically, we've seen Izzy do this already, back at the ruins and in the factory, but for those of you who don't respect the concept of sitting behind a desk on the computer as work, in this instance, Izzy and Tetamon are on a multi-day hike in the mountains while searching for Tai and Jedi. When Tetamon suggests taking a break, Izzy treats this like a ridiculous request, saying that they don't have time to rest, meaning despite his stature, Izzy's fortitude is likely greater than or equal to Tai's. As Tai mentioned, he ignores his fatigue and hunger at times, but Izzy seems to be able to turn it off completely. This is a talent that can definitely come in handy in a pinch, but this level of detachment might make it difficult if put in charge of a team. During their search, Izzy and Tetamon fall into Vedamon's trap, where Izzy is strong-armed into giving up his knowledge and curiosity. Vedamon describes these things as an unnecessary hindrance, as he cites some of the pitfalls of knowledge that we mentioned already, such as the danger of poking your nose into things you don't fully understand, or the idea of finding more than you bargained for in your pursuit of information. I think Izzy's final desperate cry for mercy as he falls into the depths can be a callback to the revelation about his parents. In Vedamon's domain, we see the opposite extreme of Izzy's life philosophy, as he is hypnotized into abandoning all but the most basic thoughts for functioning.
It's all you need to know.
All you need to know, whether you like it or not.
But proving once more that Izzy's not all nuts and bolts under the dome, it's his compassion that brings him back to his senses when he sees Pabumon crying over the forgotten time that they've spent together. Now, a big shift occurs in Izzy's character after Tai is elected as leader. It might seem odd that Izzy is willing to sit back and allow Tai to solve Mairosumon's gate puzzle based on instinct, but when you take into account that we've seen a lot of times, even when Izzy's shown to know exactly what he's talking about, the others seem less than enthusiastic about what he has to say. And when Tai charges Izzy to solve the puzzle, Izzy is legitimately shocked, likely due to the sudden change in attitude towards his thoughts and opinions concerning matters of consequence. By now, Izzy has learned to trust Tai, as he sees his great importance in the group's dynamic, and with this act, Tai shows the feeling is mutual, having experienced a major attitude change after the Digimon incident. Izzy uses his knowledge to get the puzzle as far as he can go, then turns it back over to Tai to complete the rest. This marks the beginning of a very intricate dynamic duo between Izzy and Tai, and Izzy's development after this point is a great example of how a good leader can bring out the strengths and potential in others. As the fight continues in the real world, Izzy's pursuit of knowledge becomes more focused, and usually, as soon as he makes a discovery, he goes directly to Tai to see how he wants to utilize the information. And since he always has Tai's backing, all his theories are taken seriously. It doesn't mean that they suddenly comprehend everything he's talking about, but following Tai's example, the others have Izzy simplify things when he can, and decide to trust him when he cannot. And this is the same with his parents. When the Bakuman start rounding up civilians, his parents are perplexed to see him still messing around on his computer in a time of crisis. He tries to quickly explain the situation and that he's trying to protect them, but of course it sounds like nonsense. His mom tries to physically pull him away from his computer, but his dad says maybe they should trust him, and he quite literally bets their lives on their son. This gamble pays off, as Izzy is able to hide them within a digital barrier, and they are one of the few families that don't get captured. As Izzy prepares to leave and link up with the others, his mother tells him that she can see he's grown a lot, and that she may not understand what's going on, but he will always be her baby boy. A sentiment that seems to strike a hard emotional chord with Izzy, considering what he knows. And we see another one of the few instances where Izzy gets emotional. But he'll have one more of these moments with his parents. In the Eye of the Storm, Izzy's parents approach him and tell him the truth about him being adopted. They have a long overdue discussion about how Izzy came to be part of their family, and Izzy admits part of the reason he lost himself in his computer was a form of escapism, trying to bury the knowledge he uncovered. Ironic for the infinite knowledge seeker. But with everything out in the open, he realizes his origins don't change much. They all love each other, and are still every bit a family whether they share the same blood or not, somewhat entering the philosophical discussion he and Tentomon had at the beginning of the series. Showing just how close they are, Izzy's parents stick with him for the remainder of the Mairosuman arc, saying whatever happens, they're in it together, and they even help solve the prophecy to help bring down Venom Mairosuman. When the team returns to the Digiworld, Izzy works tirelessly. Every second of downtime they have, Izzy sifting through data on the Dark Masters and even their own Digimon, looking for favorable matchups and weaknesses they can exploit. No matter how the group is divided up, Izzy sticks close to Tai, and I believe the two have a mutual understanding that each one needs the other to operate at maximum efficiency. The two really have the Captain-Lieutenant routine down packed. One of Reaper's favorite instances between the two is Tai observing Puppetmon's henchman through his telescope, which is scanned to his Digivice, after which he passes his Digivice to Izzy, who scans it into his computer so they can formulate a plan of attack. The two really work well together. That only makes it all the more out of line when Tai attacks Izzy when he tries to talk Tai down from overexerting the group. And if Izzy recognizes this, you know Tai is going too far. Izzy shows a lot of guts, proving he's willing to stand up to someone much bigger and stronger than himself if he believes that they're in the wrong. Izzy gets tackled and decked by Tai, but just a few minutes later, when Tai recognizes he was being a complete jerk, he offers Izzy to get his get back, but Izzy adamantly refuses, even after additional prompting from the Digimon and Tai himself, to let him have it. Izzy quickly accepts the apology and moves on, recognizing that there is nothing to be gained by unnecessary violence, and proving once more the depth of his loyalty and that he can be quite courageous. In the last battle, while Tai and War Greymon are being pummeled by Paimon, Tai refuses to let the others get involved. Izzy shows open frustration about not being able to fight, still advising Tai from the sidelines. He acknowledges Tai's reasoning, but counters if the two of them fall in battle before the others arrive, it will be for naught. But even though it pains him to watch, he obeys Tai's orders, choosing to trust the team leader to the very end. And finally, when it's time to say goodbye, Izzy and Tenenbaum's farewell is certainly the most clunky, showing that in spite of all his growth, he's still somewhat lacking in social tact.
Anything for you. Give me a hug.
You're joking me!
But even so, it doesn't take a computer genius to see how much he loves and cares for his friends. And that should about do it for our analysis on Izzy. To say the Digidestineds couldn't have done it without him is an understatement of the century. Izzy's endless quest for knowledge might occasionally put him on the fringes of the group, but when it's focused on helping his friends, it turns him into a near unstoppable force, putting the impossible within reach for the Digidestined team. She's whiny, ditzy, complains a lot, and has a bit of a selfish streak. But despite her shortcomings, it's hard to deny that by Journey's end, this character's level of growth has far outpaced her peers. Hey guys, this is D Reaper, and today we're going to do a character analysis on Mimi Tachikawa. For those who are unaware, this is part of an ongoing series, where we analyze the Digidestineds from the original series. We're more than halfway done at this point, so if you missed any of the previous ones, be sure to check the playlist, linked in the description below, to catch up. With that said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Mimi is the dainty girl of the group, and Tai points out that she doesn't seem like the type who would voluntarily come to summer camp. And his assessment isn't wrong. Mimi makes it clear early on that she is not accustomed to being without luxuries like manicured nails and excessive hair products. On top of that, she seems completely oblivious to exactly what they will actually be doing at summer camp. This does work out in the team's favor, as when they're pooling resources, they find Mimi's packed a lot of survival gear, including canned food and a fire starter and more. Even though Mimi displays the appropriate reaction to being attacked by giant monsters, a lot of times she almost appears like she doesn't grasp the severity of the group situation, as she's constantly whining and complaining about trivial stuff. Granted, she's not the biggest complainer in the group, that would be Joe, but Joe's complaints often come as he's accomplishing an unfavorable task, like crossing a high ledge while complaining about not having a safety harness, so it comes off as more of a coping mechanism, while Mimi sounds more like a protest that she wants someone to fix, and can come off as being pretty ungrateful, such as when an RV suddenly appears out of the blue on their first night in the digital world. While the others see it as a godsend, providing a safe place to sleep for the night, Mimi complains about needing a warm blanket to be comfortable, and that she can't sleep with all of them there, annoying even Izzy, who asks if they should all just sleep outside so Mimi can get her beauty rest. Mimi might seem like a handful, but she's not intentionally trying to be a pain, and she is one of the kids who's having the most difficult time adjusting.
I know I can do this. Really, I can. Okay, ready, set,
Okay, that only took 4 minutes.
And we can see the other kids and even the Digimon going out of their way to help encourage Mimi and cheer her up.
Yeah, maybe if she puts in some effort, she'll become a hard-bodied machine like I am.
I hope she grows pink wings just like my wings.
There's no beating around the bush. At the beginning of the series, Mimi is undoubtedly self-centered. But just so we're clear, that doesn't mean she's selfish. There's a difference. Analysis machine?
Information displayed.
A good indication of this is when the other partners get taken prisoner and the rest of the group is brainwashed by Multimon, Mimi doesn't even register their odd behavior. When Palmon, you know, the one of the pair that's less experienced dealing with humans, points out that the others seem to be acting funny, Mimi dismisses it, saying they always act weird, and she can't tell the difference. Another instance occurs when the kids are divided by Devimon's attack. After the two are reunited with Izzy and Tentomon, Mimi is excited, but Izzy seems completely preoccupied, trying to decipher the labyrinth-type structure they're in. To her credit, Mimi does wait patiently for him to finish, but after hours of being ignored, she blows up at him in a full-on tantrum, complaining about all the things that she's been through since coming to the digital world, and she doesn't deserve to be treated this way, before running off into the labyrinth, leaving Palmon behind. Tentomon goes after her, and while the two are lost in the crumbling and booby-trapped maze, Mimi is constantly complaining, saying why does all this stuff have to happen to me, and at one point saying that she should be getting used to the world being out to get her by now, which is a common negative thinking pattern plaguing many who display a self-centered mindset. It's problematic because, in a way, it's invalidating that the other kids are going through the same type of hardships as she is, as well as ignoring that this current predicament that she and Tentomon are in is a direct result of her own actions. And though she does appear thankful when Izzy helps get them out, she at no point apologizes or owns up to her role in creating the problem. Even after the defeat of Devimon, Mimi still seems to lack the same agency as the other kids. Shortly after arriving on server, Mimi is carried off by a group of Pagumon, and once she realizes they're taking her to a bath, one of many luxuries she's constantly complaining about, she surrenders herself to them, leading to a misunderstanding when the others charge in to rescue her. She completely lets her guard down without backup at the prospect of getting a relaxing bath. For all she knows, they could have been planning to summon her alive and have her for dinner. The group is divided on whether or not to trust the Pagumon, but Mimi is their biggest advocate, describing their treatment as making her feel like a princess in a castle. Foreshadowing, maybe? Even noting Mimi's lax attitude, we see Mimi has started to change, as she seems to begin to really see herself as part of the team. She no longer tries to pass off every duty presented to her.
If you really don't think you need me,
I miss you guys already.
And in fact, seems eager to play a role in aiding the group, like when she charmed the Numemon into letting them aboard their ship. And honestly, she seems happy to play almost any little support role.
Thanks, Mimi.
You're welcome.
Get down.
But when the group is split up after Tai goes missing, it looks like Mimi takes 150 steps back. By the time Joe and Tai catch up with her at Shogun Gekkomon's castle, Mimi's completely lost it. She demands to be referred to as Princess Mimi. Furthermore, she expresses she doesn't want anything to do with the group anymore, and even that she has no interest in going home at all. When the others aren't on board with Mimi's decision, she has them forcefully removed from the castle, and it's shortly after this that we discover how this situation came to be. Mimi has been extorting the Gekkomon and Otamamon with a promise to wake their master from his endless slumber with her beautiful singing voice, in exchange for getting the princess treatment. But really, she has no intention of fulfilling her end of the bargain, since she's receiving her payment up front. When the boys find out about this, they try to trick Mimi into fulfilling her promise. Unfortunately, the plan backfires when they're discovered, and this time she throws them in a jail cell. Even the ever-loyal Palmon can't excuse this behavior. When she lashes out at Mimi, she's both hurt and surprised, but claps back by tossing her partner in the cell as well. Some might find Mimi's actions over the top. Some might find her behavior unforgivable. And for those of you who think this way, allow Reaper to play devil's advocate. Mimi Tachikawa is a simple girl. She never wanted much in life. Just fancy clothes, jewels, good food, a big castle, people waiting on her hand and foot, and challenge obedience. You know, the simple stuff. And when you take that into account, you'd realize Mimi's not just living her best life, she's living her dream life. She kind of lucked into the role, because at first, she had every intention of helping the castle dwellers with their dilemma, but she forgot the words mid-performance. Then, when the Gekkomon and Otamamon tried to give her some more motivation by spoiling her, and she thinks, oh wow, I can get all this stuff just by doing nothing? And she proceeds to make the experience for everything it's worth. Then here comes Tai to rain on her parade. Tai and Mimi have a special relationship, something we'll go into detail on a bit later, because I think this also plays a role in how quick Mimi is to turn on the attitude when they come to take her away. But when Tai shows up, she knows all he's offering are endless hikes, monster fights, and roughing it in the wild for days at a time. It makes sense that when given that choice, Mimi would say thanks but no thanks, especially considering how much she openly expressed how much she hates the constant struggle they endure in the digital world. She even outright asks them why she'd want to give any of this up, and Tai's answer is, because do it. Later that night, likely spurred by her fight with Palmon, Mimi has a nightmare where she's abandoned by all her friends, and realizes with the way that she's been treating everyone, she has no one to blame but herself. Still half asleep, she confides in Sora, knowing this dream very well turn into reality if she doesn't do something. In a complete 180 moment, Mimi releases the others from their cells, and humbles herself before her friends as well as the Gekko and Otamamon, appearing to them not as Princess Mimi, but the plain old Mimi they used to know. She admits she was wrong in her actions, apologizes for her behavior, and asks if they would do her the honor of allowing her to sing for them one more time. This is a very big moment for Mimi's growth, especially because in this situation, no one forced her hand. She had all the leverage, but chose to give it up when she realized how awful she was behaving. When Shogun Gekomon wakes up and immediately starts going on a rampage, Mimi yells at him to show some gratitude to everyone that worked so hard to wake him up. But he doesn't listen, and they end up fighting, which is unfortunate for Mimi, as a life of violence and hardship resumes mere moments after she gives up her princess gig. And I'm sure somewhere deep down she was thinking, why did I agree to do this again? The important thing is, Mimi's grown a lot from this experience, and seems to be much more self-aware. Several episodes later, when they're trying to figure out the gate to return to the real world, Mimi has a minor outburst upon hearing yet another perilous condition is heaped upon their ability to use the gate. But unlike other times, when Mimi lets her emotion get the best of her, she's able to regulate herself, and even apologize to the group for the inconvenience, before giving Tai her vote of confidence. When the group returns to the real world, no one is more excited than Mimi, who goes around hugging all her friends, exclaiming how much she missed everyone, despite the fact that only a few hours have passed in the real world. And she's so animated, the others are scared she might blow their cover. But it's while the group is on the way home that there's an occurrence that I believe highlights the importance of Mimi's role in the group, as well as that special relationship Tai and Mimi have. So let's talk about it now. Tai is an absolute machine. He's always charging forward, ready to push through pain, fatigue, discomfort, and inconvenience in order to get the job done. Mimi is the opposite. She's a lot more fragile and tends to resist anything that might cause discomfort or hardship, and she's very vocal about it. A lot of time when Mimi's on the verge of quitting or giving in to her avoidant tendencies, Tai's usually there to give Mimi a kick in the butt, to get her moving again.
Get down off that high horse of yours and shift your rear into high gear!
This isn't to say Tai is always harsh with Mimi. Often a word or gentle nudge one way or the other is sufficient.
Does anybody have something to eat?
Oh, Mimi, not that again.
I was just asking.
Well, ready to go, Mimi?
Yeah, do you think I could take some of my princess clothes with me?
Mimi!
Well, it just seems such a waste. The jewels at least?
I think a good example of how important this is for Mimi is when Tai, Matt, and TK split off from the group to chase down Sora. A decent amount of time passes since speaking with Sora before the others arrive, as we see evening is beginning to set in. When Tai asks what took them so long, Joe explains that they had to take a break every 5 minutes when Mimi got tired. For Mimi's side, it does seem even though it's difficult, she does appreciate Tai's efforts. We see her try and return the favor after Tai is down after accidentally dark digivolving Greymon, though it ends up more as kicking a guy when he's down. The more beneficial part of this relationship is how Mimi balances Tai out, which helps to regulate the group. As we discuss in our character analysis on Tai, one of Tai's biggest flaws is pushing the group too hard. Tai has a lot of qualities that make him a great leader, but you can't be much of a leader if others aren't able to follow you. By listening to Mimi, Tai can get cues on when to tone down the intensity to give the others a chance to catch up. In this instance, while they're still making their way home, Mimi is the most vocal about expressing how tired and hungry she is, and that it would be really great if they could have a nice meal. It gets the others talking because they feel the same way. Tai shoots down the idea, saying that he knows they're all tired and hungry, and he is too, but they can't afford detours with their limited time and resources. It's hard to argue with Tai sometimes because he really does have a knack for seeing the big picture and plotting the navigation straight to it. But when he sees how crestfallen everyone is, he decides to give into Mimi's proposal and stop to eat, a decision that instantly refreshes the team's waning morale. Before going any further, let's discuss Mimi's crest of sincerity. Since that seems to be one of the more obscure ones, according to collected data, Analysis Machine, can you get us a working definition on sincerity?
Affirmative. Sincerity refers to operating without the contents of pretense or deceit. It implies acting out of kindness or compassion with a sense that can be described as genuine in being aligned with one's own internal beliefs and values.
Thank you, Analysis Machine. So we've talked about how Mimi is definitely not shy about speaking her mind, and this comes from her personal internal alignment, so we know she's being genuine, though we haven't seen many outstanding affinity for kindness or compassion. But this changes while the group continues their battle with Midosmon outside of the digital world. It seems when they shift the stage of battle to the real world, Mimi finally starts to register how serious their conflict is. She's much less focused on superficial things and instead is focused on substantial things, like the well-being of her family and friends, and even the citizens of the city. Even when she's captured by Midosmon, she doesn't think woe is me, an attitude that the old Mimi most certainly would have displayed, but instead she's hoping that all her friends are still safe. Even when things are at their bleakest and it seems that their small rebellion they've mounted is falling apart, she's not concerned for herself. She's on the brink because she knows her family and her friends are suffering, and she wants to do something to help Togemon. This is when Mimi's sincerity truly blossoms, allowing Togemon to digivolve to the ultimate as Lilymon. By the time the team return to the digital world, Mimi is a completely different person. She has compassion for Chumon, a Digimon that she used to be disgusted by the mere sight of, and even tries to protect him with her own body, something that the Digimon realizes and takes the blow for her instead, costing him his life. But unfortunately for Mimi and the others, this won't be the only tragic death that they experience, because as the battle against the Dark Masters ramps up, more and more of their friends end up as casualties of war. Immediately following the defeat of Metal Seedramon, Mimi erects grave markers for their fallen friends. When Tai tries to get the group moving, Mimi says she isn't going because she's had enough death and violence. When Tai tries a more forceful push, Mimi starts bawling and still refuses to move. This isn't like before when Mimi refused to go on because she was tired or uncomfortable. This protest is coming from a deeper weariness in her soul. The downside of Mimi's heart growing 3 sizes is how in-depth and personal she feels about the loss of each friend. It's especially something considering how emotionally distant Mimi always used to seem from all the fighting going on around her. Puppetmon's interference creates fractures in the group already pulled taut with stress, and by the time Garbagemon attacks, Mimi is about to snap. She catches the Digimon's attack with her bare gloved hand, and tosses it back at him, stunning both Garbagemon and Puppetmon, until Sora comes back and grabs her, and she realizes how dangerous and gross that was. And later, when Matt and Tai are fighting, she runs to a corner and says she's just going to keep looking at the flowers until everyone stops fighting. In the aftermath of the fight, and the revelation of their Digi-Destiny, when the group moves to set out once more, Mimi voices that she can't continue with the group. She can't bear the thought of any more fighting, injuries, or death, and because of the danger of her being alone, Joe volunteers to stay with her. When they're alone, Mimi asks Joe if he thinks she was being selfish to excuse herself from the fighting, but Joe tells her he thinks that what she did was quite brave, and here Reaper tends to agree. It's not always easy to be honest about your true feelings, especially when it's an inconvenience to the people that you care about, and this is an issue more than a few Digidestins struggle with, as reflected quite literally by Joe in his glasses. This is another attribute of the strength of Mimi's sincerity. Being able to be honest with herself and not just the group is vital, especially considering that internal emotional discord may prevent her partner from digivolving, as Gabumon recently experienced this with Matt. When the group run across an injured Ogremon, the other 3 are resigned to leave him to his fate, with the Joe and Goemon saying they should act like they never saw him and it serves him right respectively, but Mimi won't hear any of that. She pushes past Joe and takes charge of the situation, and insists Joe use his medical expertise to help. Ogremon is baffled at the fact that they're helping, and even more so after they patch him up and are preparing to leave without asking him for anything in return. But Mimi tells Ogremon that they just did the right thing, and this makes them friends now, which moves Ogremon to tears, never having had one before. But tender moments aside, it doesn't seem like there will be any relief from the fighting, as a small group has to contend with both Puppetmon and Metal Edamon. Throughout the skirmishes, Mimi can't bring herself to join the fighting, but assists the wounded and less powerful Digimon stay out of the conflict. But after Saber Leomon sacrifices himself to save them, Mimi realizes that unless they rise up to fulfill their destiny, the pattern of death and violence will never end. As Mimi stills her resolve for the final fight and sets out to recruit more allies, we get a reminder of how far she has come, as she tells the Gekomon and Otamamon not to refer to her as Princess anymore. Even though Mimi has come a long way, we see that there are some things that still haven't changed. Without Tai to keep Mimi moving, she once again resumes stopping mid-hike when she gets tired, and refuses to move until she's fed and rested, with Joe himself saying he's not sure how to handle her when she gets like this. But he finds he doesn't have to. With Mimi's natural charm and fully blossomed sincerity, it seems that there are more than enough people more than willing to go out of their way to help her. And looking at the way she's been treating people, it's really no surprise. Unlike before when she was a princess, and had to order people around with a stick and carrot method, now there are people like Chumon and Ogremon, eager for an opportunity to return the kindness that she's shown them. And it's really seeing Mimi's operating at the max of her sincerity that motivates Joe to achieve a higher level of responsibility. By the time the final battle rolls around, we see Mimi has amassed quite a large resistance force, and though they're mostly just used to clean up fodder, it's still quite the testament of what Mimi can do when she sets her mind to it. And lastly, after the last battle, not only is Mimi more than willing to remain in the digital world, but when it seems that the group has no choice but to say goodbye, it's Mimi and Palmon who have the hardest time doing so. As Palmon heads away, unable to bear saying goodbye to Mimi, and Mimi is absolutely hysterical. But when Palmon arrives attempting to apologize, Mimi doesn't need to hear it. She's just happy she gets to see Palmon before she leaves to return to the human world. All the Digidestins have grown a lot through their journey, but no transformation is as dynamic as Mimi. When once she was self-centered, vain, and avoidant, to become the most sensitive, kind, and sincere among them is a true story of transformation, which is why the title of Most Improved Player has to go to Mimi, the sincere princess of the Digidestin. Joe is the oldest member of the original Digidestin team, as well as the resident worrywart. He's pessimistic, complains a lot, and not exactly what you'd call the bravest of characters. So is his crest of reliability something of a mismatch? Hey guys, this is D Reaper, and today we're doing a character analysis on Joe Kiddo. We've got a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. This particular analysis holds some significance, because when we did the Choose Your Own Crest challenge, along with Courage, the majority of true believers reported that the crest of reliability was their closest match. So for starters, let's define what reliability is, and as we analyze Joe, we can see if he measures up to the caliber of true believers. Analysis Machine, can you help us define reliability?
Reliability refers to someone or something that is consistently good in quality or performance, worthy of being trusted, dependable, dependent upon, and steadfast.
Thank you, Analysis Machine. Alright, let's look at Joe. One of the things we see early on is Joe's adapting a lot slower than most of the others. He seems the most skeptical of his destined partner than all the other kids, and he seems the least willing to accept the group's reality that they find themselves in, as he frequently tries to convince himself that he's just having a very long, convincing dream. When the team finds phone booths on the beach, after a few hours of them being in the digital world, the whole team is thrilled with seeing their first signs of human technology, and think perhaps this is their chance to contact home. However, after a brief interaction with the booths, the others quickly accept that although it looks familiar, these phones are about as alien as everything else in this world. But long after the others accept the truth and move on, Joe's still at it and willing to give up until he has dialed every number he knows, or until one goes through. So, not off to a great start. That is, of course, if you only focus on the negative, which is what Joe has a tendency of doing. But looking on the other side, we see even amidst their strange circumstance, Joe is still trying to maintain a sense of order, as he scolds Mimi for trying to shirk her duties and insists that she takes her turn carrying the supply bag, a system that was implemented while they were still in summer camp. He also tries to lead the others to safety when Shelma on attack.
Everybody, up here!
Albeit unsuccessfully. Even though they're in a fantastical situation, as the oldest, Joe still feels like he's responsible for the others, especially in the beginning of the journey. When Matt and Ty have their first big fight, Joe steps in and expertly diffuses the situation by validating and complimenting both sides, then suggesting positive ways that they can direct their abundance of testosterone by taking guard duty. Joe seems to see himself as the adult of the group. However, after time goes on, we see Joe begin to question his role amongst the other Digidestins, which is a journey that will encompass the majority of the series. We get the first hints of these happenings in episode 7, when we see Joe begin to crack under the weight of responsibility he's placed on himself. He's noticeably more agitated and easily riled up, so much so that the others notice the change in his behavior. It's during this time that Matt and Ty have their second big argument, where they're deciding whether or not to climb Infinity Mountain. As the two are getting worked up, Joe gets between them as he did before, and tries to resolve their conflict. But as stated in previous analyses, a lot of Ty and Matt's arguments are less about who's right and who's wrong, and closer to who's more right or who's less wrong. Seeing the value in both sides, Joe struggles to find a resolution. As the two apply more pressure, Joe ends up getting just as worked up as they are, and Sora ends up intervening, calling out all three of them. Joe takes this extremely hard. Never did he imagine trying to be the voice of reason would amount in him being counted as part of the problem. He spent the remainder of the evening in his head wondering if he's not in fact the voice of reason and mediator of the group, then what exactly is his purpose? He reminds himself that he has to be the responsible one, because their lives are in his hands, and he comes to the conclusion that by climbing Infinity Mountain himself, he can bring a resolution to the suspended conflict, by both removing the uncertainty of the danger and sparing the younger kids the trek to appease Matt, as well as making a path forward and getting the lay of the land to appease Ty. Still under the burden of his sense of responsibility, Joe sneaks off in the dead of night to accomplish this task, but he's annoyed when Gomamon joins him. When he sees ditching Gomamon will be more trouble than it's worth, he begrudgingly accepts his company. As the two spend the rest of the night climbing, we see Joe at last fully open up to Gomamon, and finally accepts him as a partner. But just as they're closing in on their moment of triumph, they get attacked by Unimon. Backup arrives just in time, but with Unimon's air superiority and home field advantage, the group is quickly backed into a corner. It's here that Joe jumps onto the unicorn's back and attempts to physically pull the black gear from the monster's back. Let me take a moment to acknowledge how absolutely courageous this act is. Although Joe is probably the most skittish person in the group, you'd be surprised to see how often he swallows his fears to take action, especially when it falls under what he perceives is within his line of duty. Even before Unimon's attack, when the mountain splits open revealing it's housing dozens of black gears, meaning Matt and Beelmon's caution of the mountain was likely warranted, Joe simply declares that there's no turning back now, as the two proceed to continue their climb. But let's get back to Joe's stallion wrangling. As he's holding on for dear life, Joe is chanting to himself that he has to be positive and using positive self-talk, somewhat acknowledging his typical negative attitude and belief in the power of positive thinking, or perhaps mind over matter, you could say.
Have to think positive! I'm responsible! I've got to do it!
Joe pulling at the gear appears to be causing Unimon a great deal of pain, and the seizing horse bucks Joe off of him. Fortunately, Gomamon digivolves into Ikakumon, just in time to catch him, and with his help, they're able to free Unimon from the Black Gear spell. In the aftermath of the fight, Gomamon tries to keep up he and Joe's frenemies routine, but Joe brushes Gomamon's comment aside to embrace a true partnership. And even though they don't really find the answers that they were expecting atop the mountain, Joe comments that they learned a lot on the way up. In Joe's case, likely that he doesn't have to shoulder all the responsibility of the group alone, as this is the last time that we see him attempting to do so. But his journey to find his purpose in the group has only just begun. We can observe Joe hit another bump in the road when the group is separated by Digimon, and he and Gomamon are left drifting in the ocean on a makeshift bed raft. Joe is losing it, and Gomamon's lackadaisical attitude is only exacerbating the situation. Things get worse when Ogremon attacks, and the two are forced to retreat. It might have been curtains for the two of them, had they not been reeled in by Sora, who happened to be fishing nearby. While Joe is still unconscious, Gomamon tells the others that he's worried that the series of events might have badly damaged Joe's confidence, and suggests that they make him their leader as a confidence boost, which the others oblige. And it becomes evident that Joe might not be cut out to be a team leader. After Joe stops floundering, he begins acting like what he believes being a leader entails, as he leads the others in an army-style march to survey the surrounding area. As the night goes on, he starts lashing out at the others for making suggestions saying that he's the leader, so what he says goes. As he begins to go on a bit of a power trip, the small group realizes they might have accidentally created a monster. And when trouble rolls around, in spite of his frequent declarations, he has to be reminded that as leader, it should be his job to investigate the issue. Although Joe's short-lived leadership role was filled with more blunder than success, he did manage to pull things together as he devised a mind over matter exercise to help Birdramon and Ikakumon overcome Bakumon in a fight. And overall, this experience seemed to provide the confidence boost Joe needed to get back on track as they prepare to confront Devimon. Joe remains consistent through the Edamon arc, but besides his witty comments,
what do you think Genai meant when he said we weren't taking proper care of our Digimon?
I don't know. We've done everything but give him an allowance.
there is not too much to note until he and Gomamon are scammed into working at Digitamon's diner. This whole situation is a reminder of how hopeless Joe can be sometimes. Not only are Joe and Gomamon basically in an endless loop of indentured servitude, Joe seems all but resigned to his fate before Matt arrives to give him a hand. Furthermore, even though Joe is being sabotaged in the background, Joe himself is extremely accident prone, especially when under pressure, making him twice as easy to dupe. However, during the big confrontation with the crooked diner owners, Joe proves once more that he can be counted on when the chips are down, as he, for the second time, jumps on the back of an attacking champion level Digimon, this time to save TK from Vegemon. Though Vegemon is wringing him like a sponge, Joe urges Ikakumon to help Garurumon in his fight, assuring the others that he's fine. It really does speak to the caliber of Joe's character, when he's able to put others first even when he's experiencing a great deal of pain, which I might add, Joe happens to be allergic to. And after going through all that, he's not even expecting an apology from Matt, who falsely accused him of purposely sabotaging the group. Later on, after the group is united, Joe's the first to endorse Tai as the official leader of the group. And from what we already know about Joe, this is huge. For starters, we know on some level Joe saw himself as something akin to the leader of the group, being the oldest, which Joe marks as quite significant, as well as being the most serious and practical. As he states, this is what it means to be responsible for the entire group, including being responsible for their safety and well-being. This is something that Joe takes very seriously, and we witness what the weight of that burden was doing to his psyche. For Joe to be the first to promote Tai, not only does that mean relinquishing what he believed was his role, it's also a showing of humility, as Joe learned both on Infinity Mountain and on the island with the Bakumon that being a leader comes with a myriad of unforeseen challenges, and he admits with no hesitation that his junior is the one who's most suitable for the job. When we return to the real world, we learn a little about Joe's family dynamics, which gives us a little more insight on why Joe behaves the way he does. Joe comes from a family of doctors, and the expectation is that he too will become one in the future. and it is implied that Joe really doesn't have much of a say in the matter. This might be why Joe is always putting so much pressure on himself, because he's already used to others putting pressure on him. Speaking of, we actually see it in some of Joe's internal dialogue, that he actually does think that the other Digidestins have these grandiose expectations for him, which is more serious in the early part of the series, and more comical near the series end. But since Reaper sees this as more of a serious topic, let's take a moment to talk about Great Expectations. No, we're not talking about AP English. Analysis machine, less trolling please.
Apologies.
Alright, so oftentimes someone having high expectations for you is a very good thing. After all, usually if someone is expecting great things from you, that means they believe that you can do those things. Or in other words, they have faith in you. The most straightforward example being a parent wanting their child to succeed. However, it can be a problem when those expectations eclipse the foundation of said relationship, or if the final version of said expectations don't align with those of whom it's expected. If you happen to have great expectations for someone, that's wonderful, but do be sure that the aspirations of those who you believe in also share your passion. Otherwise, you might be surprised to learn that you were unintentionally harming someone whom you wish only good for. It might sometimes be necessary to revise those expectations to find a middle ground that's close aligns with said person of interest. If you happen to be the subject of said expectations, it's important to understand that this is typically coming from a good place. Nonetheless, if those expectations don't fall in line with what you want to do, it's best not to let it consume you, otherwise you might end up feeling lost, confused, and unfulfilled. It might be necessary to initiate the communication with this certain someone, so they know how you feel. Because too often, people can get so caught up in knowing what's best that they forget what's healthy. This is actually an elaboration of the advice Joe gets from his older brother, Jim. Jim actually thrives from the pressure his parents put on him. That's because Jim's greatest aspiration is to become a doctor and help others. But even in his own situation, Jim wants to be a doctor in his own way, which is somewhat different than his parents' vision. Jim tells Joe that he thinks Joe would be a great doctor, but it's something that he has to decide for himself that he wants to do. He even encourages him to talk to their parents if he isn't sure. Along with many of the other interim issues we see the kids face outside of the digital world, we don't actually get a definitive conclusion to this conflict. But as Joe listens to Jim's advice with a mixed look of patience and apprehension, we realize that there's probably a lot more going on in Joe's mind at any given time than he lets on. It also provides a clear window with Joe's relationship with his older brother. At first, Jim seems like kind of a jerk teasing Joe, and may come off as the typical mean older brother. But when he's speaking with Joe with concern, while still being upfront, you can tell that the two have an honest communication link going, and that's something that can't be established without a lot of trust. In the chaos caused by Marvelous-mon, Joe and TK end up stuck on the harbor, unable to cross to the opposite shore, where Marvelous-mon is wreaking havoc. It looks like smooth sailing when the two decide to ride Ikakumon across the river. That is until they discover Mega Seedramon is blocking the way. When he attacks Ikakumon, the two are thrown into the water, and neither of them know how to swim very well. Joe quickly grabs a piece of debris, pulls TK out of the water, and places him on it. Joe barely has a few seconds to tell TK that he can't let anything happen to him, since TK is just a kid, and he's responsible for him. He then sinks into the water. This act shows the depth of Joe's conviction as a responsible party, putting the lives of others above his own due to his duty. This action causes his crest to glow, and the two are saved by Zudamon when Kakumon digivolves. Joe is a pretty upstanding guy, and by now he has a pretty consistent streak of being reliable. But one common pattern that we see with the group is the others making light of Joe, especially when he's trying to be assertive. One of the best examples of this occurs right before the team returns to the digital world after defeating Venom Marvelous-mon. When Jim comments how unsettling it is knowing that the fate of the world is in the hands of a bunch of kids, Joe responds knowing that Jim is trying to encourage them in his own way. He declares fiercely that he will make sure that the sun rises in the morning, implying that he will keep the end of the world at bay, where he's instantly patronized by Sora and Mimi before accidentally stumbling into the digital portal. I emphasize this to point out Joe is still treated this way even late in the series, and though it may seem like the other kids are just being big meanies, it's not exactly without merit. Joe is very negative, even downright pessimistic at times, and he's constantly complaining. With that in mind, it doesn't feel too harsh to make a wise comment at the guy who says they're willing to walk 1,000 miles to reach their goal 1 minute, then complain about the blisters on their feet the next. But I do believe this attitude from the group may have played a role in one of Joe's future decisions, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Not long after Metal Seedramon is defeated, Mimi hits her breaking point and resigns from the group, unable to fight any longer. Joe volunteers to go along with her, for no other reason besides knowing she will be in more danger if she's left on her own. And he's correct. Just because Mimi refuses to fight doesn't mean their enemies will give her a pass. When Mimi asks Joe if he thinks she was being selfish, Joe tells her he actually thinks she was being very brave by speaking out, and wishes he could be more like her in that way. He says this as we see him reflecting on the conversation he had with Jim. While separated from the group, the two are attacked by both Puppetmon and Metal Edamon. When the two find a wounded Ogremon helpless in the woods, Joe has every mind of leaving their old enemy to his fate, but after some coaxing from Mimi, Joe decides to use his medical knowledge to patch him up. Though the others are impressed by Joe, he claims all he did was the most basic first aid for Ogremon. Still, it seems that the act of helping someone in need, with the knowledge that he had obtained through his studies, helps to nudge Joe along the path of medicine. It's only after Joe is assured Mimi will be safe that Joe departs on his own journey of self-discovery. As mentioned near the beginning of the analysis, Joe spends most of the series wondering what his role is. Joe even compares his journey to Matt, but honestly this comparison is horribly inaccurate, and also totally on brand for Joe. But ever the faithful companion, Gomamon accompanies Joe on his vague quest. When he finds Matt at the opportune time to bring him back to the group, he sees this as a sign that he did the right thing. And this is further reinforced when he's able to assist Matt in helping Sora when she's being consumed by darkness, letting her know she doesn't have to bear the weight of the world on her own, something he learned early in his journey. Satisfied, Joe believes he has grown into a person that the team can rely on, and is ready to join the team for the final fight. But in reality, Joe has been this person for quite some time. Through his journey, we see Joe can be trusted to make himself small so others have a chance to grow, consistently puts his life on the line to protect his friends, and remains a steadfast figure in the group that the others come to depend on. I guess that's what they call him, Reliable Joe. In addition to being Matt's little brother, TK is kind of the little brother of the entire DigiDestined team, recognized by his optimism and hopeful attitude. Being the youngest in the group, TK is often free from the burdens of responsibility and high expectations. But is there more to this character than being a hopeful, if not sheltered, clueless kid? Hey guys, this is D Reaper, and today we're doing a character analysis on Takaru Takashi. We do have a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. TK is the youngest member of the original DigiDestined group, and in a lot of ways he behaves just how you'd expect the little kid of the group to act. He can be very excitable, sometimes unbothered by the severity of the group situation because of the wonder of their new environment, and other times he's so overwhelmed by the situation the group is in that he breaks down, unable to register that this is a time to be a big boy and persevere when the going gets tough. Looking at him passively, it might be easy to pass him off as some clueless young'un with no agency, but it only takes looking just a little bit closer to realize that that's far from true. We get our first clue that TK is more observant than one might initially think in episode 3, when Matt is arguing with Tot. And we did represent this in our analysis on Matt. While the situation devolves, we get frequent cuts back to TK to see how he was responding to the whole situation. And though he doesn't say anything, it's clear to see that he's always watching his brother very closely. We'll get more evidence on this later on in the episode when Matt tells Gabumon to sleep by TK to keep him warm. Though Matt tries to hide his intentions, TK picks up on exactly what's going on, knowing Gabumon must have come on Matt's behalf, and thanks Matt for the gesture even though Matt hadn't said a word to him about it. But this goes beyond mere observation. Later that night, during Sijumon's attack, TK falls into the water as a result of the ongoing battle. This causes Matt, who's already acting recklessly, to turn it up to 11 as he starts yelling at the monster to divert its attention away from his brother. This results in Matt getting grabbed by Sijumon. At this, TK is now beside himself with worry, begging Gomamon to do something to save his brother, and saying that he'll never be able to forgive himself if Matt doesn't make it out of this okay. From this, we see even at TK's young age, he feels responsible for his brother's safety. In addition, TK is showing recognition, acknowledging the great lengths his brother undertakes to keep him safe, and even goes as far as blaming himself for being in a dangerous situation, even though it's not really his fault. This is a type of skewed rationality that often comes from overinflating responsibility, or hyper-responsibility, which isn't uncommon when it comes to concerns about a loved one. From this attitude, we see that even though TK is the baby brother, he still takes personal responsibility for his brother's safety. In the aftermath of the Sujimon fight, the group is wiped. This was their third big monster attack, and they are approaching their 24-hour mark of being in the digital world. With that, plus the lack of sleep, some of the other members are so fatigued that they're falling asleep mid-sentence. But looking at TK being serenaded by his brother here, with a look of pure comfort, it might be hard to believe that the kid has a single care in the world. This picture alone can convey the immense love and trust between the siblings. As the group continues their adventures in the digital world, We can see how the others do their best to shelter and accommodate TK, allowing him to play or rest while they discuss matters of consequence. Being the younger certainly has its perks. There's a lot less stress when there are so many big kids to rely on to take care of everything. But when the kids get split up following the group's first meeting with Digimon, that comes to an abrupt end. When TK realizes it's just him and Patamon, TK starts bawling. This goes on until Patamon joins him, and TK tries to cheer him up. When the two get moving again, they begin wandering with no real direction, with TK frequently wishing one of the older kids was around to help them. Fortunately, Bartholomew Kuma must have paid TK a special visit, because while the others are roughing it in the wild, TK landed just a jump, skip, and a hop away from Primary Village, the nursery/daycare of the digital world, and the mood quickly changes from being directionless to having fun in the sun and playing with the adorable Digibabies. However, the vacation is interrupted when Elecmon, the village's caretaker, mistakes TK and Patamon for intruders. Elecmon and Patamon get into a fight, during which it looks like Patamon is finally going to Digivolve. This is significant because as of now, Patamon is the only partner who has been unable to Digivolve to the champion level. Something that we see has begun to weigh on Patamon, as he wonders if he'll be strong enough to protect TK in a dire situation. As the fight progresses, it seems as though something might be holding him back, and just before Patamon reaches that point, TK steps in, demanding the two stop fighting. Here we get a deeper look into TK's ideology and reasoning process, as well as how TK's attitude has been shaped by his parents' divorce. And it starts to make sense why Patamon is the only partner yet to Digivolve further. TK is essentially a pacifist. From his parents' example, he sees how devastating things can be when grown-ups fight. It means families split up. It means you don't get to see the people that you love. It means things get lonely and difficult to understand. And as the two fight, TK follows the progression oddly calm, observing how the fighting is wrecking the environment and scaring the children. For TK, it doesn't make sense for people to fight when they can talk, or at least agree to slow things in a peaceful manner. Admittedly, TK's view is very optimistic, but from a certain point of view, it's absolutely right. And I'm sure some of you have probably wondered the same thing. In our allegedly civilized world, why is it that the best solution we can come up with is wiping each other out, or blowing one another off the map? Surely there are an infinite amount of other ways we can resolve our issues.
The two of them could settle it with a game of Nevertoffel, and it would mean as much as this war. But they both raised armies instead, and sent them out here to spill each other's blood.
Couldn't we settle this with a worldwide Smash or a Tekken tournament? What about an epic rap battle? Or a basketball game? If it just has to be war, couldn't we do Call of Duty Black Ops 6 instead? I think it's worth noting that a lot of the hostile Digimon the group has encountered by this point have been roaring, snarling, and screeching brutes. It's questionable if most of these monsters are even capable of speech or higher reasoning. With Elecmon, on the other hand, he made it clear that he thought the two were up to no good, mistaking the pair's odd circumstance for ill intentions. In spite of himself, Elecmon ends up going along with TK's suggestion as they agree to settle their differences with a game of tug-of-war. After Elecmon is soundly defeated, he realizes he is barking up the wrong tree and apologizes for misjudging the two. TK is obviously feeling pretty good about himself, having been able to peacefully resolve their conflict. But as the conversation turns to Digimon, Elecmon tries to impart some real-world wisdom to the pair. It's true that they were able to resolve their conflict peacefully today, but that's no guarantee that will always be the case. He tells TK that, in order for the two parties to be able to talk things out, it does first require both parties to be willing to do so. He says some people, like Digimon, may not be willing to come to a peaceful solution, and if that's the case, TK might have to fight. And Elecmon is completely right. This answers our earlier question about war.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Why can't we have peaceful solutions to conflict? Because there's true evil in the world. Because there are wicked individuals in the world who will settle for nothing less than bloodshed. And in order to keep those things that are important to you safe from such individuals, it means sometimes you have to fight them. And this is where we see TK's immaturity come into play. As Elecmon explains these truths, TK yells that he doesn't ever want to fight.
I don't want to fight ever!
He doesn't refute Elecmon's point or provide a logical explanation on how he will get around the conundrum of dealing with someone who has no desire for peace, but essentially claims things will work out peacefully as long as they try. We see Patamon endorse TK's pacifist stance as he declares he hopes he never has to Digivolve, so they can stay just the way they are forever. But fighting against change is akin to fighting against growth, and their ideology is put to the test almost immediately. The next episode, when Leomon attacks them under the influence of the Black Gears, he's in no state to be reasoned with. Fortunately, Matt and some of the other big kids arrive to handle the situation for them. TK immediately falls back, once again seemingly comfortable letting the big kid handle the problem. But we see Patamon is disturbed by the whole event, knowing that if the others hadn't arrived when they did, he would not have been able to protect TK, and might have to accept the fact that if he wants to do so in the future, he might need to be willing to accept change. When it's decided that the group's best option is to confront Devimon, the team returns to Infinity Mountain, but as the fight commences, it becomes evident that the team might be in over their heads. TK and Patamon take a back seat to the action as usual, but as the other Digimon are taken down one by one, Devimon turns his attention to TK. Patamon does his best, but he stands no chance of stopping the enemy. When it seems like all hope is lost, Patamon finally digivolves into Angemon. Even digivolved, Angemon's first reaction is to get Devimon to give up, telling him that the tides have turned, and he doesn't stand a chance against the forces of good. Yet Devimon tells him outright talking is pointless, and that Angemon will have to fight him. At that, Angemon declares that if it means that he can help others, his own fate is inconsequential, which is an interesting choice of words given the situation. All the while, TK is watching the exchange from below with a mix of awe, anxiousness, and apprehension. Through it all, Angemon reassures TK, telling him to relax and that he'll handle Devimon. True to his word, Angemon does just that, channeling energy from all the kids' Digivices and focusing it into a final attack. Unfortunately, the maneuver pushes Angemon past his limit, and though Devimon is defeated, it's at the cost of Angemon's life. As his data scatters, Angemon's final words to TK almost sound apologetic, as he states he will come back if TK wants him to. This final statement begs the question if even up to this point, was TK still apprehensive about fighting? For those not familiar with a partner system, it typically requires a degree of unity and some emotional clarity to achieve more powerful digivolutions. We saw this clearly in the last episode while Patamon fought Elecmon, and we'll see other instances in later episodes and sequel series. With Angemon's disposition, it seemed to make it clear that he was fighting strictly because there was no other way. But it seems even in the midst of this, he could still sense his partner's uncertainty about fighting, and thus in some ways, his actions could be seen as a betrayal of his partner's wishes. Hence his somewhat apologetic bearing. I also think it makes sense for TK's current mindset, because this event is a major turning point for his character. TK blames himself for Angemon having to sacrifice himself to defeat Devimon. Maybe if he hadn't hesitated, Patamon would have digivolved sooner. Maybe if Angemon had fought alongside the other Digimon, he wouldn't have had to overexert himself. Either way, by following Angemon's example, TK learns that sometimes in order to stand up for what's right, it means that you have to fight against what's wrong, even if you don't want to. He abandons a piece of his innocence to obtain a measure of maturity. As the group is making the important decision on whether or not to leave the island, TK speaks up with a conviction that shocks the other team members. Typically, TK sits quietly while the other kids decide what's best, but this time not only does TK speak up, while the group is in deadlock, there seems to be no hesitation when he declares he believes that they should leave the island. He punctuates his declaration by saying he believes it's what Angemon would have wanted them to do. TK's firm stance seems to be the final push that the team needs, as it sways some of the more apprehensive team members, such as his brother Matt, and it's decided that they will leave the island for the server continent, to fulfill whatever their Digi-Destiny might entail. As the team proceeds with their adventures on the server continent, TK is sidelined while his partner slowly regains his strength. Before the Devimon fight, TK might not have given it much thought, but we see in a few instances, TK is bothered by being left out and not getting to contribute. But Matt assures him that when Poyomon fully recovers, the two will be the coolest partners around. It isn't until Tai and Agumon return to the digital world after defeating Enamon that we get another big character moment for TK. This occurs as a result of the team splitting up in Tai's absence. When the team dwindles down to just Matt and TK, we see how distraught TK is by being abandoned by the others. He begs Matt for them to continue looking for the others, and when Matt refuses, TK begins to cry. This is another example of how their parents' divorce affected them in different ways. While Matt closes himself off to steel himself with the inevitability of letting go, TK takes the abandonment very personally, wondering what part he played in the role. We see that TK has that mindset at the top of the conversation when he asks Matt why the others left us, and even more so later when Matt ends up leaving to chase a potential lead. TK puts on a brave face, telling Matt he'll be fine for a few hours while Matt investigates the area. He does his best to keep it together as the hours turn into days, but eventually TK is left bawling his eyes out, asking why did he leave me. When the two end up accepting Devimon's help to find out what happened to Matt, Devimon uses the opportunity to manipulate them. Devimon may be an idiot, but he's well equipped for psychological warfare. As he tells TK Matt abandoned him because he was tired of the inconvenience of looking after a crybaby like him. TK takes it very hard, but the word that he focuses on is crybaby. This is likely because TK is insecure about crying all the time. For those who are unaware, when you're insecure about something, it's very easy to believe other people are also focused on that thing. For example, you might have a crooked smile and think, oh my gosh, everyone's paying attention to the precise angle of my smile. I just know it. When in reality, most people probably don't even notice. But that's how insecurity works. That's why even though Tokomon is convinced that Matt would never say such a thing, this brings on a fresh wave of tears for TK, feeling both betrayed and abandoned by his big brother. After Tokomon tries and fails to get Devimon to confess to lying, he resorts to violence, which TK immediately reprimands him for. The two argue, and when Tokomon threatens to leave, TK pulls the Uno reverse and tells Tokomon he has no choice but to leave. This very well might be a power play by TK. Tired of being abandoned and not having any control over when people leave, he takes the initiative and tells Tokomon to hit the road before he can be abandoned by his last friend. To punctuate this, he tosses aside his Digivice and crest as an official resignation from the team that has fallen apart. Now mimicking his brother's behavior, TK tries to put up a facade that the fallout doesn't bother him, but with far less practice than his big brother, it doesn't take long before his mask falls off. And even with Devimon giving him every reason to keep pretending he's having a good time, his face tells the story of how troubled he's feeling. When Tai and Agumon show up, TK is overjoyed to see them, but when Tai says they need to start looking for the others, TK is less than enthusiastic. He believes everyone else abandoned them. Only Tai is absolved from this, given the circumstance. When Tai tries to explain that the others likely didn't leave because of TK specifically, TK is unconvinced, stating that even his own brother doesn't want to be with him, so it only makes sense that the others would be less tolerant. Tai jumps to Matt's defense, assuring TK that Matt would never say such things, but since in TK's eyes Matt has already betrayed him, TK is ready to spill the tea on Matt. He tells Tai he wouldn't be defending Matt if he knew how jealous he was of him. Even little things like the two of them interacting make Matt upset. And this is actually another example of how observant and emotionally conscious TK is of others, especially his brother. We haven't really gotten any on-screen references to Matt's jealousy of Tai at this point in the story. But later on, we will discover that this is something that has been weighing on Matt, likely even longer than he himself realized it. Later, when Devimon is caught in the act of trying to poison the group, TK shows genuine remorse for his behavior and begs Tokomon to forgive him, which of course Tokomon is more than willing to do, under the condition that they be friends forever, which TK agrees. Even so, it's apparent that TK is still disappointed with his behavior, as he apologizes several more times for how he was acting, and being so easily fooled, in spite of Patamon showing him that it's in the past. By the time the group catches up with Matt, TK is all smiles, fully forgiving Matt for his absence without any need for an explanation. But when Matt starts going in on Joe for seemingly no reason at all, TK does something we haven't seen him do. He stands up to Matt amidst his tirade. This is something significant, because as we already discussed, TK is always watching Matt. He clearly has an opinion in these moments, though he chooses not to voice it. But TK is changing, becoming both more confident and conscious of taking ownership. He voices his opinion to Matt, almost like he's picking up the previous conversation about finding the others, and how they have only made it this far through teamwork. But Matt silences him harshly, which seems to surprise the both of them. Matt was likely taken by surprise by TK's newfound boldness, and retracts his previous shouting, with a more controlled order to be quiet and come with him, as Matt is dictating TK's actions, resigning both himself and TK from the team. Whether or not TK would have gone along with this demand is unknown, because Devimon and Digitamon's arrival leads to a fight. And after the scuffle, the ensuing drama was resolved. The next instance we see also involves Matt, and this is quite interesting, especially if you followed along with us on our character analysis on Matt. This occurrence takes place as Matt's taking TK home to their mother, where we see something of a reversal of behavior. As it's getting late, TK tells Matt he doesn't have to accompany him the whole way home, that he's taken him far enough. But Matt assures TK he's doing this because he wants to, not because he has to. It's a rare moment for the two, one with Matt being fully transparent about his love for his little brother. On top of that, we can kind of feel the heaviness between the two as they're coming to the terms that the fun times and close physical proximity that they have been enjoying is about to come to an end. Patamon comments about how sweet their love is. TK gets upset and yells at Patamon for butting into their personal business and making fun of them. And it's Matt who has to calm TK down and let him know that he's in the wrong. The oddity here is that TK is usually the one who wears his emotions on his sleeve. He cries when he's upset, he's generally open about how he feels, and as we have demonstrated before, seems to have a good general awareness of people's emotional state, including his own. I think TK's outburst here is a testament to how very emotionally raw he is here in this moment, and their current situations bringing to the forefront once more how the pain from their parents' divorce has affected their lives. Matt, on the other hand, who's prone to outbursts, especially when faced with big emotional catalysts, keeps his cool. And once again, referencing our character analysis on Matt, We determined many of Matt's outbursts are impulsive, but not subconscious, meaning Matt is quite aware of his actions, often showing a semblance of regret or remorse immediately after the fact, like when he yelled at TK for speaking up. In a lot of ways, Matt does display the same emotional acuity that we see in TK, but seems to struggle more managing his own emotions. So with Matt being the one who keeps us cool here, and talking TK through what he's feeling, I think Matt is seeing a lot of himself in TK's behavior, and it's interesting to see this bit of role reversal play out. But how family ties play into TK's characterization is only just getting warmed up, because at the end of the arc, following Venom Milousmon's defeat, the two brothers and both parents meet for likely the first time since the divorce. The reunion is pretty uncomfortable. We see Matt's emotional barriers go up, quite the contrast to the progress he's shown all arc. Their father immediately lights a cigarette, a very unhealthy yet not uncommon stress reliever, and he doesn't make a move to close the physical distance between them. Their mom keeps a respectable distance from Matt, and when TK leads her closer, she crosses her arms in front of her, forming a barrier. Everyone is showing signs of being out of sorts. That is, everyone except for TK. TK is happy as a clam, smiling, laughing, and having a ball. Why is that? Can he not see that he's the odd man out in this quartet? That's one possibility, but since this is a Reaper analysis, I'll give you three. One is, this is coming from TK's naivete, with a parent trap mentality, that all it would take for his parents to resolve their issues and the four of them to be a family again is that they all be in the same proximity. Though, to be honest, Reaper thinks this possibility discredits TK's growth. With the resolve TK showed deciding to leave Foul Island, it appeared he matured past the point of believing every challenge can be resolved through talking things out. Well, if not that, is it possible that TK is just oblivious to the fact that everyone else is feeling so uncomfortable? Well, I don't think that's the case either. That would mean ignoring the fact that from the beginning of the series up until this precise moment, TK has been quite intuitive of discerning the emotions of others, especially when it comes to his brother. The last possibility I have, which is the one Reaper personally subscribes to, is that TK's cheerful attitude is coming from his genuine optimistic nature. Being an optimist and being hopeful are often seen in tandem, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. An optimist can enjoy the here and now for what it is, without the hindrance of what's to come later, and I think that's where TK is now. It doesn't matter if his family has a future together under the same roof, because here in this moment, he's able to enjoy this time with the three of them, and he's ecstatic. I also think this explanation further highlights the dynamic contrast of the two brothers. As they depart for the digital world shortly after, TK is joyful with being seen off by both his parents, while Matt is so emotionally disturbed he's incapable of saying a proper goodbye. When the group returns to the digital world, we're seeing a completely different TK than what we started with at the beginning of the series. Besides talking about the frequent instances of TK remaining hopeful in the many desperate situations that they face upon their immediate return, I think the hallmark of TK's growth really shines during the group's confrontation with Puppetmon. Matt and Ty just had another of their routine fights, and while tensions are still high in the group, Puppetmon begins his assault by separating the group. When TK and Matt are left alone, Matt starts telling TK that they don't need the others, and that he'll protect him. But just like at the diner, TK refutes Matt, telling Matt the only reason that they made it as far as they did was with everyone's help. And furthermore, he demands Matt starts treating him like an equal, instead of like some kid that needs to be protected. This is not a TK that can be shouted down by Matt any longer. Shortly after this exchange, Puppetmon appears before them. Without their partners, the two can't hope to resist Puppetmon, but Matt still steps forward to protect TK. This of course doesn't slow Puppetmon down in the slightest, and it's with the threat of eliminating his brother right there and then that TK agrees to follow Puppetmon to his playhouse so he can toy with TK before killing him. Through this act, we see once more that the protection of the brothers is a two-way streak. Despite being younger, TK feels a great deal of responsibility for Matt's safety. With having to confront a mega-level Digimon who also happens to be a Dark Master on their own turf, and without a partner no less, it's pretty difficult to accurately describe the power imbalance. But even facing imminent death while knowing his captor is taking pleasure in his turmoil, TK keeps a cool head, watching for an opportunity. When TK observes how childish Puppetmon is, TK uses this to his advantage, and tricks Puppetmon into giving him free reign of the hideout. After which, TK wastes no time in throwing a major wrench in Puppetmon's control scheme, before escaping right under the puppet's long nose. The victory over Puppetmon is immense, and it's honestly hard to imagine any of the others handling the situation better than TK did. When Matt, Mimi, and Joe split off from Ty's group, TK sticks with Ty and the majority to confront the remaining Dark Masters. With less team members to rely on, Ty gives TK more responsibility, even going as far as putting him in charge of protecting Kairi and Sora, while he and Izzy look for medicine. Though this was only a precautionary measure since Ty was under the impression that this location was safe, Upon their return, they found TK and Anjuman did just that. When it seemed like their location was compromised, TK and Anjuman relocated the group and fended off the attackers until the others returned. During the final fight with Paimon, when things take a turn for the worse and most of the others are converted into keychains, TK's spirit does waver, which is more than understandable considering the circumstance. But when he sees his fears are affecting Kari, he summons his courage for her sake to encourage her to keep going.
I'm scared. It's okay. Great. Now Kari's afraid. I can't let her see that I am too. I've got to be brave. Anjuman will be fine, but you've got to keep on climbing. Don't let that Joker Paimon scare you. Okay.
And he even urges Kari to save herself and forget about him when Paimon gets a hold of him. When the two are falling to their doom, TK realizes if he gives in to despair, then the last hope for the two worlds might be extinguished. With some help from his brother's spirit, TK manages to keep hope alive, allowing Anjuman to digivolve further into Magna Anjuman, and they manage to gain the upper hand and free the others from Paimon's clutches, ultimately sealing Paimon's defeat. And I think that should just about round out our character analysis on TK. At first glance, TK might seem like a lesser character, or a built-in ex machina to the series, but through closer observation, we can see the budding potential of TK slowly mature until he comes into his own as the ultimate hope of the Digidestined team. She's the 8th child, the little sister of the team leader, and bearer of what could very well be the most powerful crest of all. But does her late arrival mean she doesn't have as much personality or impact as the other Digidestined? And what exactly is the meaning of the Crest of Light? Hey guys, this is D Reaper, and today we're doing a character analysis on Kari Kamir. Now let's be clear, our focus will be on Kari herself, so we'll be keeping the homeostasis stuff to a minimum. And with that clarification, let's go ahead and jump right into it. We're first introduced to Kari when Tai and Koromon are sent back to the real world after their fight with Edamon, and pretty soon we start getting the impression that Kari's a little different. She's special, you could say. Now, the exact roadmap of why Kari is so special varies between the novel, anime, and even the movies, but what all agree on is Kari, the human child in and of herself, is a special girl, and not just in an everyone is special sort of way.
Which is another way of saying no one is.
There are a few things that we can note right away with Kari. One is her admiration of her big brother Tai, and another is her relationship with the Digimon. Her views on Tai seem pretty straightforward, so let's start there. If you followed along since our analysis on Tai, then you probably know that even though Tai can be a blockhead at times, he's still an admirable character with a ton of great qualities. And we see Kari expanding on those qualities as she describes to Koromon how caring, cool, and capable Tai is, despite the fact that he bugs her sometimes. Throughout their stay, Tai is having a pretty difficult time mentally. He appears to be dealing with a form of combat neurosis, torn between remaining in the human world or returning to the digital world. He's also openly flustered and frustrated with his own limitations. Although he's able-bodied and willing to return to the digital world and continue the fight, he feels inhibited by his technical illiteracies with activating his Digivice. But for every one of his doubts, Kari is there with a word of encouragement, sure that he'll figure it out eventually, soothing him with calming thoughts and assuring him things will be fine even if they can't get back right away, or even ever again. I think part of this speaks to the type of relationships that they have. Although Kari has more confidence in Tai than anyone else, she knows that Tai has a tendency towards recklessness, and she worries he might take extreme measures if he gets too desperate. So she does her best to reassure him before he reaches that point. Another layer to this admiration is Tai is a lot of things that Kari's just not. Tai is an athlete, and shown to be a lot more physically capable than most. He's also bold, assertive, decisive, and typically very sure of himself, and it's quite the opposite in Kari's case. Kari seems to be prone to illness, or at least more susceptible to it than the other kids in the group. She's also quite meek and somewhat skittish, on occasions declaring she's going to dig deep and be brave just like her brother. But all in all, it's clear that more than anything, she loves Tai 3000. It's a beautiful moment. As Tai is returning to the digital world, Kari isn't upset about the fantastical events. She's not concerned that her new friend Agumon went ahead of them. She's not worried that she'll miss out on an exciting new adventure, and she doesn't even ask Tai to take her with him. Instead, she pleads for Tai to stay with her. She says this even knowing he can't, and she calls for him not to forget about her, because she doesn't really have any idea of how long they'll be gone, or when or if they'll come back. But since we know with future knowledge that Kari will be pulled into the fight sooner than later, let's talk about her relationship with the Digimon, and her other special talents. Kari's alleged first reaction to seeing a Digimon is quite different from the other Digidestins. Not only does she remain casual, she addresses Koromon by name before he can introduce himself, though she cannot explain how she knows this. Within a minute, she and Koromon are playing together like old friends. With Tai, she seems to have intuition bordering ESP, as she's able to recite Tai's inner dialogue almost verbatim. When Tai is alarmed at seeing the Digimon partially emerge on the TV, Kari voices that she's been able to see them for quite some time, and is glad that Tai can see them too. So what exactly is going on here? A lot of this is tied back to her fragmented memory of pivotal events that happened several years back, that started with a crack in the boundary between worlds and concluded with Koromon digivolving to Greymon and fighting Parrotmon in the streets. And in order to understand this relevance, we have to ask why the other kids don't remember. It appears that the group are victims of what's known as the Mandela effect. This is a phenomenon where a group of people share the same false memories of an event. There are several reasons why something like this can occur, including hysteria, social conformity, and memory confabulation, to name a few. But to give a simple explanation, let's say you were abducted by aliens.
Warning. Current analogy might create its own subset of issues.
Oh, right. Message received. Okay, let's say you suddenly find you've slipped into another reality, parallel to your own. After spending the afternoon in a world similar to your own, but a little off, you slip back into your own world and try to explain your experience to others, only to find no one believes you. Worse, your testimony starts causing issues. Your friends start avoiding you for being weird, your mom is worried because she thinks you've lost your mind, and your dad gets angry because he thinks it's all a big prank. After a week of living like this, you realize that there's nothing to be gained from sticking to your true account, while on the other hand you have everything to lose. So you admit that you made the whole thing up.
The truth is, there was no wolf. I faked the whole thing.
After speaking to the school counselor and apologizing to your parents for making them worry, you begin thinking it probably would make more sense that you were having an off day than whatever fantastical experience that may or may not have taken place. And in addition to lying to others, you start lying to yourself until at last you start believing it too. If you're unfamiliar with the realm of psychology, you might be surprised to discover how easily something like this can occur. But there are no shortage of circumstances that can lead to such occurrences. Analysis machine, if you would.
Information displayed.
But I think a good example of what happened with the other Digidestineds comes straight from the news report.
Apparently, some of our viewers have called into our station claiming to have seen monsters on our newscast screen. Authorities believe this is merely a bit of hysteria among a few individuals. If you think you see these monsters, you should seek medical attention immediately.
In addition to foreshadowing of future Digidestineds to come, we see exactly what kind of attitude those who don't conform must deal with. Disbelief, labeling, accusations, and more. So it makes sense that the children would succumb to these mental attacks, eventually purging their memories of the truth, until the exact date that the event is forced into the spotlight by their shared experience later in the series. But Kari appears somewhat resistant to this brainwashing, being able to access certain details from the past incident and recall them with a degree of confidence. And speaking of that incident and Kari's special talents, we learn later on that it was both Tai and Kari that allowed Agumon to digivolve. Why is that? For Tai being Agumon's destined partner, that's an easy enough question to answer. But what role does Kari play? Well, we learn later that the power that allows Digimon to digivolve resides within the children, and both the Digivices and the Crests act as amplifiers to enhance that process. And it seems Kari might have that enhancement power too. It's possible that Tai, being much younger than the present-day version, and not having access to either of these tools for evolution, may have needed Kari to help act as a super battery to help Agumon reach the next level. With that in mind, maybe Kari's light is the light of evolution? Well, let's put a pin in that for now and hop back onto a cohesive timeline. Shortly after the group returns to the human world to begin the search for the 8th child, Tai asks Kari if she's ever received anything resembling a Digivice or a Crest. But because of some hijinks with their cat Miko, Kari's Digivice is lost, and Kari has no recognition of the device. And Tai seems somewhat relieved that Kari doesn't have to get involved in the fighting. But as we know, this is not to be, because not long after, Kari and Gatomon have their fated meeting. The first thing that Gatomon notes is Kari's recognition, kindness, and acceptance towards Digimon, as Kari is not fooled by Gatomon trying to pass herself off as an exotic cat, and Kari invites her into their home. Not wanting to risk letting someone who could possibly be the 8th child slip through her fingers, Gatomon thinks it's a shame that she has to extinguish someone so pure and innocent, but still appears determined to go through with it. But her inner instincts cause her to hesitate, and not long after we see why, as Kari is confirmed as the 8th child with Gatomon as her destined partner. In the whirlwind of this new revelation, Kari is made aware of the amount of danger she is in, as Gatomon is captured and she's alerted that her identity must remain hidden for her own safety. We see even though she's frightened, she tries to hide her distress from Tai.
You scared, Kari?
Not really.
Atta girl.
There are several times in the series where Kari tries to hide her fear or fatigue to try and be strong for Tai, another testament of how much she trusts and admires Tai and wants to be more like him. But in spite of her near unshakable faith in Tai, it doesn't prevent her from worrying about him, because she knows her brother has something of a reckless streak. Oftentimes her parting words to Tai are to please be careful.
Please be careful.
Hey, aren't I always?
He says this moments before the two tumble down a flight of stairs. After their parents, along with most of the citizens in town, get captured, Tai and Agumon lead a two-man assault on Myrtle's army. Kari is worried about them, of course, but as she confides in Matt who's watching her, she still firmly believes Tai will return soon with their parents in tow. It's only when she looks to Matt for confirmation, and he instead voices his heavy skepticism, pointing out the extreme danger of Tai's actions, and he was very likely to get hurt in the process, that actually dawned on her that Tai might really be in over his head, and she begins to cry. Later on, when their location is discovered, and Matt and the others are being overwhelmed by Myotismon's forces, we see how selfless Kari can be, as she offers herself up to Phantomon, unable to bear the sight of others suffering in her place.
I'm ready. Hurry, man, stop her!
No, Kari!
Even hearing the finality in her voice, I think it's clear she understands the fate that awaits her. The Dark Forces are so baffled by her actions, they partially believe her decision was merely the naivete of a child. Even as she stands before Myotismon in one of the show's darker moments, Myotismon asks her to confirm that she understands what's about to happen to her.
Little girl, why have you chosen to show yourself to me? Do you have any idea what's about to happen to you?
I've got a guess.
Then why?
'Cause you were hurting all those people. Huh?
Seeing that she does, Myotismon, unable to grasp the idea of such compassion, tries to make sense of her actions. Fortunately, his bemusement allowed the others a chance to catch up, and the team bands together to fight him. But in the melee, Wizardmon is struck down, while protecting Kari and Gatomon. This is the last push for Kari as her crest and Digivice start reacting, which allows Gatomon to digivolve to the ultimate level as Anjiwomon, and with her power, they are finally able to put an end to Myotismon. For now. As the group continues the fight in the real world, and even after they return to the digital world, Kari doesn't appear to have any difficulty adjusting to the fighting, a clear testament to her adaptability, and she quickly proves to be an asset to the team. Her extrasensory-esque abilities come in handy several times, like when she prevented the other Digimon from attacking Chumon, when she sensed whatever was hiding in the brush did not have evil intentions, or when she reached out to communicate with Homeostasis to help quell the team's infighting. And it's during that time that we learn more about the crest's origins and functions. We know that the crests were designed for each chosen child, so it's not a coincidence that the immensely courageous Tai got the Crest of Courage, or that the knowledge-seeking Izzy attained the Crest of Knowledge. These were predestined for their owners, but in Kari's case, she's shown to have the aptitude for multiple crest qualities. So maybe the Crest of Light can be categorized in something of a literal sense, like when you mix the colors of a rainbow together and get white. Perhaps when you mix all the crests together, you get light. Well, maybe we'll circle back to that later. In addition to many other positive traits, Kari is the most agreeable and accommodating person in the group, bar none. So much so that she is the only member of the group that never has conflict with any of the other team members. And why would anyone have conflict with her? She's practically blameless. But blameless is a far cry from perfect, because when taking a closer look at Kari's altruism, it reveals her fatal flaw, which is her inability to communicate her own needs to others. Because Kari tends to be most susceptible to illness, her family will often show concern for her, frequently checking in on her to see if she's okay. And her response is usually that she's fine, and not to worry about her. But she's not always completely honest with them, like when Tai asked her if she was scared earlier. Kari behaves this way as not to be a burden to others. And though tending to the needs of others ahead of your own can often be viewed as a righteous act, sometimes this desire to accommodate others might not just be detrimental to self, but also cause a bigger strain on the person or persons you are trying to spare. We can see a good example of this in the flashback of Kari's near-death experience, when Tai brought her outside to play soccer when she was sick.
But Reaper, are you blaming Kari for the incident even though she was just a little girl?
Not necessarily. If we're playing the blame game, Reaper would start with why a severely ill child was left home alone, and then under the care of an elementary schooler. And even before the act, Tai is aware that the more comfortable act for Kari is to remain indoors and rest. But I want to emphasize the importance and responsibility of being able to communicate your needs even as a child. An important example of this is learning to go to the bathroom. During potty training, small kids often don't have the know-how to go to the bathroom by themselves, but it's important that they learn how to communicate when they need to go, so an adult can assist them. With that in mind, it is important even at a young age that Kari communicates that she's in pain and doesn't feel well enough to go outside. She might have went along with it to make Tai happy, since she knew he wanted to play soccer, but as seen, the outcome served neither purpose, but instead became a source of pain as the incident became a traumatic event for Tai. But even after returning from her close call in the hospital, Kari's focus was still on the disappointment of not making Tai happy, a mindset that proved both harmful to herself and her brother. It certainly would have been nice if she learned something from this experience, because we see another similar event play out after the defeat of Puppetmon. Although the team is advancing into enemy territory, they have a brief respite mid-travel as they are searching for a lead on their next destination, and joking amongst themselves to keep their spirits up. They hear Kari coughing, and Garamon asks playfully is she okay, but mere moments after confirming that she's fine, Kari collapses. Once they find her shade and confirm that she is indeed running a fever, Tai asks Kari why she didn't speak up earlier, since they certainly would have taken it easier had they known she was having a hard time. But Kari responds that she didn't want to slow anyone down.
How come you didn't say something before now, Kari? If we'd known sooner, we could have rested till you felt better.
You mad? I didn't want to slow everyone down.
Oh, I'm not mad.
But once again, Kari's pattern of neglecting her own needs for the good of the others proves counterproductive, as not only does the team deviate from their course, it forces the team to split up further to cover both the needs of keeping her safe and securing medicine. Not to mention it has the opposite effect of unburdening Tai, as he's nearly losing himself with worry until they're reunited. After Kari's fever breaks, the team is searching for a way out of the underground labyrinth, where they come across enslaved Numemon. Witnessing the injustice triggers something in Kari, and she becomes partially synchronized with homeostasis, signified by the glowing light, voice change, and increased foresight. Well, I said we would be keeping the homeostasis stuff to a minimum, and I meant it. Instead, I want to focus on what causes these triggers for Kari, as we see several in this episode, and the key seems to be the loss or disregard for life. It was the same type of instance when her crush activated after Wizardmon sacrificed himself, with a similar overwhelming reaction after the newly freed Numemon are slaughtered by Machinedramon when they try to protect her, resulting in flooding Agumon and the others with Digivolution energy.
I feel the power!
So perhaps that means Kari's light represents life? Well, that is connected to evolution. Life does find a way, after all. Well, let's bookmark that for now. In the final confrontation with Paimon, Kari proves to herself she can indeed be strong and courageous like her brother. When Paimon picks off the Digidestins one by one, it's only Kari, TK, and Patamon remaining, who have yet to be turned into keychains. Paimon gets a hold of TK, and although TK urges her to run and save herself, Kari refuses to leave him, and instead attempts to pull TK free from Paimon's grasp. This may seem like an inconsequential detail, but when taking into account how compliant Kari is, it gives this scene a little more meaning. For instance, this happened just moments before.
Looks dangerous. You go first. Oh.
Kari is almost always compliant and non-confrontational, but when faced with abandoning a friend or fighting against insurmountable odds, Kari chooses to fight, even if it means speaking up and acting in opposition of her friend's desires. So perhaps this is a step in the right direction for Kari. But I think that should just about cover it.
Notice, a conclusion regarding Kari's crest of light has yet to be reached.
Ah, good catch. We've talked a lot about it, but what exactly is Kari's crest of light? Is it the light of evolution? The spark of life? A compilation of all other crests? Or something we've yet to mention? The correct answer is yes. Kari's crest of light signifies all that's good in the world, and as its wielder, Kari can reflect that goodness and convert it to the power of light. So Kari can channel the power of courage, like her big brother, or love, like Sora, or friendship, like Matt. But it goes beyond even that. Things like optimism, growth, kindness, positivity, happiness, purity, humbleness, honesty, resilience, integrity, and many more traits and actions can be utilized to activate Kari's crest of light. This potency and versatility makes the crest of light undoubtedly the most powerful crest, and as its wielder, Kari, the only one capable of utilizing such a power, is the Digidestined with the most potential. Not merely because the light chose her, but because within her is a wellspring of goodness, shining a light bright enough to pierce the deepest darkness.
Hey Digimon, monster friends to the boys and girls. Hey Digimon, champions of the digital world. Hey Digimon, ultimate friends to the boys and girls. Hey Digimon, living in a digital land.